Chapter 113. Chapter 113, Spotlight. The fight for the Black Water Lotus seeds was over. The 7 seeds had their owners. The face of those people who couldn't get it looked bleak. Damn, I almost got it. I paid such a high price to hire you for these Black Water Lotus seeds, but none of you succeeded. Why did I hire you? You all are good for nothing. Fortunately, although I didn't get any Black Water Lotus seeds, at least I am still alive, which is better than those who died. It's tragic. Too many people died. If I had rushed to the forefront, I am afraid that I would have been one of the corpses. The different survivors felt various emotions, ranging from anger, annoyance, and some secretly grateful. Anyway, this fight was over. The warriors of the Golden Pill realm here could relax. But at this moment, bang! Suddenly, a terrible deafening roar came from nearby. Everyone immediately turned around and looked over. At the peak of the nearby, majestic mountain, 2 different terrifying spiritual powers were colliding furiously. The world was roaring, and the earth was trembling. The ruptured gravel rolled down from the peak of the mountain like raindrops. Smash! It seemed like an apocalypse. The warriors of the Golden Pill realm standing near the quiet moon lake were shocked, and then the crowd stirred immediately. It's Xiao Mang and that black-robed swordsman, whose level was at the initial completion of the Golden Pill realm. They're still fighting. How long has this been? There is still no winner between them. Come on, let's go and watch. Ha! The contest between 2 powerhouses. Hurry up. Hurry. All the people became excited with fiery eyes, and they moved to that majestic mountain. Third brother, Su Ro said, and stared at that mountain. She then moved toward it quickly without any hesitation. Xiao Mang and that boy of the initial completion of the Golden Pill realm, they could fight for such a long time? Gu Tao thought. A gleam of a surprise entered his eyes. He clenched his teeth, rushing over. At the quiet moon lake, all those warriors, no matter how they arrived, alone or hired, were crazy about this fight which was happening at the mountain peak. Those hired guns ignored the wishes of their employers. At that moment, a large number of warriors of the Golden Pill realm were swarming towards the peak of the mountain like bees. But after they appeared on the top of the mountain, all of them were shocked by the scene before their eyes. The ground there had crumbled into potholes, littered with piles of rubble and a series of giant sword scars or knife marks, which demonstrated the overwhelming spiritual power. The original stone forest here was already gone, just leaving some stark rocks. Suddenly, a dazzlingly cold blade flashed towards Jian Wushuang with fury. As the blade flashed his target, Wushuang dodged the attack by swerving his body. Then the blade chopped into the stone below his feet. Shwa. The human-height rock was split into 2 parts, just like tofu after contact with the blade. Immediately, the rock shattered apart. Pung! After splitting the rock, the blade didn't stop. It kept moving towards the ground with the same force. In a moment, a horrible deep chasm emerged, 3 or 4 meters across with rubble flying everywhere. Oh, God! The spectators were stunned. Chew! At the sound, a sword shadow pierced the void, moving quickly towards Xiao Mang. Xiao Mang evaded immediately. Thus, the long sword of Jian Wushuang stabbed into the stone wall behind Xiao Mang with a buzzing sound. The central stone of that wall was smashed into pieces directly by this attack. At the same time, a spiral hole, which was 1 meter deep, appeared on that wall. This hole covered the entire surface of the stone wall, which made people feel like the half of the stone disappeared entirely. The visiting warriors of the Golden Pill realm went silent after seeing this. Even the strongest warriors in the crowd, Gu Tao, when he saw what had happened here, swallowed unintentionally. God, what a terrifying power! Can anyone resist their attack? Gu Tao thought. Was it possible that someone could smash the gigantic rock with one slash and produce such a deep crack in the ground, or impale the large rock with a thrust while destroying all those stones and obliterating the other half? That was unbelievable. Are they just at the Golden Pill realm? Warriors of the Golden Pill realm? It's impossible. Everyone kept their eyes wide with the very strange expression, especially those guys whose cultivation was already at the profound gold core realm, or the exceptional gold core realm. Remember, one of the two guys was just at the initial completion of the Golden Pill realm, which was lower than anyone else here. The wind's roaring. Xiao Mang was hidden in the wind, but reappeared anywhere randomly. At the same time, Jian Wushuang kept dodging flexibly, avoiding the attacks. The spectators could only hear the horrible, violent thuds over and over again, and watch the destruction of the rocks. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang stopped moving, staring at Xiao Mang with his gleaming eyes. Xiao Mang's expression became serious at that moment. He didn't care about this battle at the beginning. After all, he was confident about his strength, not to mention that his realm was at the consummation of the Golden Pill, while Jian Wushuang was just at the initial completion of the Golden Pill realm. But during their fight, he found out that this initial completion guy was scarier than he thought. Xiao Mang, is that your actual strength? Jian Wushuang asked with a loud voice. You are really great. You deserve to be the 22nd in the Earth Dragon list, but I will win that black water lotus. The temperature rose immediately, and then a substantial red blast formed, followed by Jian Wushuang's sword shadow. The flames which covered the sky arrived at the same time. Xiao Mang brandished his saber quickly, and then the flames were split up. Seeing that, a gleaming light flashed from Jian Wushuang's eyes. Then a dim shadow of the giant sword chopped again. But this time, what had changed was the inconceivable and capricious, formless swordsmanship. The perfect transformation of the three sword essences, including Gusty Wind Sword Essence, the Earth Sword Essence, and the Raging Fire Sword Essence, displayed the real strength of Jian Wushuang. He's too strong. Who's he? I have never known this black-robed swordsman. How can his strength be so marvelous? He grasps three sword essences with such deep insight at the same time. Oh my God! Though Xiao Mang is strong, he's just good at the essence of Gusty Wind, while his opponent simultaneously grasps three essences. If these three sword essences can be transformed perfectly, it would be flawless. Many warriors were in awe. Comprehending three sword essences at the same time was an inconceivable matter in their eyes, but Jian Wushuang did it. Chapter 114. Chapter 114. Victory and Defeat. Amidst the terrifying, unbridled sword shadows. Sometimes they were majestic, and sometimes they were ethereal, while sometimes they were violent. The three sword essences fused into a perfect transformation. It was so unusual that nobody could deal with it, not even Xiao Mang. Although Xiao Mang was ranked 22nd on the Earth Dragon list due to his amazing saber play, he could only break through the 10th level of Dragon Gate with his Gale sword essence. However, with the perfect transformation of the three sword essences, Jian Wushuang was able to break through the 11th level. Although there was only one level between the 10th and the 11th levels, the gap between them was like heaven and earth. If it was not because Xiao Mang was able to generate greater power than Jian Wushuang, he would have been defeated a long time ago. Look, Xiao Mang is going to be defeated. It's true. The black dress swordsman is too terrifying as he can transform the three sword essences perfectly. It is not because Xiao Mang is not strong enough. It is because the black-robed swordsman is too marvelous to control three sword essences at the same time. And what's more, He can understand them so well. It is my first time seeing such a thing. The warriors of the Gold Core realm, they were all amazed at the result. In the battlefield, Xiao Mang was going to be defeated. Xiao Mang, just give up. Came the voice of Jian Wushuang. Haha, give up. That will never happen in my life. There was a crazy look in Xiao Mang's eyes. Abruptly, the aura around Xiao Mang strengthened. His power improved immediately as he lashed out with his saber. He's putting up a desperate fight. It is unbelievable that Xiao Mang is forced to such desperation. The crowd around exclaimed. Seeing the angry blade flash with his surging power, Jian Wushuang's pupils shrank, and he switched from offense to defense. Then he showed his reincarnation sword skill. Bang! 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 The continuing impacts generated air waves. The waves spread to the surroundings, which caused flying debris. Some of the debris hit the warriors of the Gold Core realm, and the strong winds roared, blowing on the Golden Pill warriors' clothes. It's useless. With a growl, Jian Wushuang lashed out with his triple kill sword. The sword edge slammed onto Xiao Mang's saber. An overpowering spiritual power erupted, and Xiao Mang was repulsed immediately, and finally he was slammed onto a great stone behind. Bang! The great stone was broken apart instantly. With blood spewing from his mouth, Xiao Mang walked slowly from the hollow stone. He looked up and stared at Jian Wushuang. Though there was still strong battle intent in his eyes, he clasped his hands together, and the spiritual power around him faded away. He was defeated. Though Xiao Mang was reluctant to do so, he had to acknowledge that he was defeated. Jian Wushuang was able to transform the 3 sword essences perfectly, but it put him under too much pressure. So he had to struggle. But this kind of struggle consumed too much spiritual power. So after just a while, his spiritual power had been used up. Unlike Xiao Mang, the aura around Jian Wushuang was still strong, and it seemed that his spiritual power hadn't been consumed at all after the fierce battle. Actually, Jian Wushuang's spiritual power had been mostly consumed, but it meant little to him. When he had just reached transforming sea realm before, the ultimate spiritual sea possessed tremendous spiritual power. Though now he had broken through and reached Supreme Gold Core realm, the ultimate spiritual sea was transformed to the Gold Core power and was no longer so large. It was still stronger than the ordinary Gold Core. At least it was 10 times that of ordinary warriors of the Gold Core realm. So after a fierce battle, Jian Wushuang's battle strength was still at its peak. Look, Xiao Mang is defeated. Although he tried his best, he was defeated. The warriors of the Gold Core realm around could tell that Xiao Mang had consumed all his spiritual power, so they couldn't help sighing and felt sorry for Xiao Mang. Though they felt sorry for Xiao Mang, they felt admiration for him. Yes, it was admiration. It was obvious that Xiao Mang had consumed all his spiritual power and wasn't able to fight anymore, but in his eyes, his battle intent never weakened, and he also kept clasping the saber, while the saber essence around him was still strong. The battle was over, but the battle intent remained. Xiao Mang. Jian Wushuang walked to Xiao Mang, and he also showed his admiration for Xiao Mang when he looked at him. However, he told Xiao Mang, "In this battle, you are defeated." Defeated? Xiao Mang smiled sadly. Then he closed his eyes and kept silent. "I want to know why you are so eager to get the Black Water Lotus, and even risk your life to fight with me?" Jian Wushuang asked. He was curious. Based on what he knew, the seeds were the most important part of the Black Water Lotus, while the Black Lotus themselves were not very useful. However, in order to get the Black Lotus, Xiao Mang risked his life to fight with him. The Black Lotus. Xiao Mang reopened his eyes and shook his head. Then he said, "Swordsman, do you know how long since I reached exceptional Gold Core realm?" Jian Wushuang was astonished and said directly, I have seen your information in the Earth Dragon list. You have long been famous and was listed in the Earth Dragon list 7 years ago. Yes, I was listed in the Earthly Dragon list 7 years ago, but I have reached the Golden Pill Grandmaster for 15 years. Xiao Mang said in a low voice. 15 years? Jian Wushuang was startled. For 15 years, he had been stuck at Exceptional Gold Core Realm. 15 years ago, when I reached the Exceptional Gold Core Realm, I met a bottleneck, and I found that I wasn't able to make breakthrough anymore even though I tried whatever I could. Xiao Mang smiled bitterly. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He also knew that in the way of cultivation, it would be harder and harder to make breakthroughs. For many people, once they met the bottleneck, it was normal for them to stop making further breakthroughs for a long time. What's more, it was nothing new for most of them to stop forever. The Exceptional Gold Core Realm and Yin-Yang Void Realm were so wide that it was very difficult to cross this bottleneck. Even for such a genius like Xiao Mang, it took him 15 years to be constrained under this bottleneck without making any breakthrough. I'm eager to make a breakthrough and became a legendary Yin-Yang Void Realm strongman, but I have hit this bottleneck for too long. I am desperate. However, not long ago, I met an alchemist. The master was well versed in this area, and I happened to do him a favor before, so he promised to refine a bottleneck-breaking pill for me as long as I could gather enough materials. Xiao Mang said, the bottleneck-breaking elixir? The warriors of the Gold Core realm around were all astonished. The bottleneck-breaking pill will provide me the chance to cross the bottleneck and make the breakthrough. Though it is not very likely to happen, it's the only hope for me. From that time, I tried whatever I could to gather the materials needed in refining the pill. Xiao Mang continued, I went to many places to gather the materials for a long time, and I have gathered most of them. The only thing that I haven't gathered is the Black Lotus. After hearing this, all the warrior of the Gold Core realm around were clear about his intentions. It turned out that Xiao Mang needed the Black Lotus to refine the bottleneck-breaking pill. No wonder he chose to risk his life for the Black Lotus. After hearing this, Jian Wushuang looked strange. He moved his hand, and a black elixir pill appeared on his hand. Is this the bottleneck-breaking pill you mentioned? Chapter 115. Chapter 115. Blood Feather Tower arrives. Amazing! Seeing the black pill that Jian Wushuang took out, everyone around was amazed. Bottleneck-breaking pill. Xiao Mang was looking at Jian Wushuang in amazement as well. How could you have it? Don't forget who I am. Jian Wushuang was a bit speechless. The bottleneck-breaking pill, an extremely high-grade pill, was not only quite rare and precious. In the whole Tianzong dynasty, alchemists qualified to refine the bottleneck-breaking pill were very rare. The bottleneck-breaking pill was too difficult to refine, so it was almost extravagant for the average person to have one. But Jian Wushuang was from Dragon Palace, whose secret pavilion collected thousands of treasures. It had all the things that one desired. The bottleneck-breaking pill was almost impossible to find, but in Dragon Palace, it would only take 5,000 points to get one. Previously, to break through the bottleneck of his primordial gold core, he purchased 3 bottleneck-breaking pills at the secret pavilion. He used 2 of them himself, but there was still one left, the one in his hand. But if Jian Wushuang had known that Xiao Mang fought so hard for the Black Water Lotus just to refine the bottleneck-breaking pill, he would have given it to Xiao Mang. It was unnecessary to fight so fiercely. You are a good man. I'll give you this bottleneck-breaking pill. Jian Wushuang passed the bottleneck-breaking pill to Xiao Mang. Xiao Mang hesitated somewhat, but he finally accepted it. He looked directly into Jian Wushuang's eyes and said, "Thanks a lot." Jian Wushuang arched an eyebrow and shifted to the front of that big tree. He raised his hand and broke the trunk into pieces, causing the interspatial ring embedded deeply in the trunk to fall into his hand. Black water lotus. Looking at the interspatial ring, Jian Wushuang smiled. Third brother, said Su Ro, appearing beside Jian Wushuang. Phew, I was lucky and succeeded, commented Jian Wushuang before passing the interspatial ring to her. Su Ro took it. After binding it, she sensed the black water lotus in the interspatial ring at once. Then a smile appeared on her face. Thanks a lot, third brother, Su Ro thanked him. Then she extended her hand with a black water lotus seed in it. Black water lotus seed. Jian Wushuang looked at Su Ro, surprised. He ran to the mountaintop for a fierce fight with Xiao Mang, while at Quiet Moon Lake, those gold core warriors would certainly have fought for the 7 black lotus seeds, frantically. The competition was bound to be quite fierce, but Jian Wushuang hadn't expected that Su Ro could seize a black water lotus seed from that group of experts. Third brother, this black water lotus seed is for you. I know you still want to grasp sword essence of the water drop. This black lotus seed should be able to help you, Su Ro said. Don't you want it? You also comprehend essence of the water drop. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but asked, the black water lotus is enough for me. This black water lotus seed is of little use to me, Su Ro said. That's great. Jian Wushuang didn't refuse. He reached out and accepted the black water lotus seed. The battle for the black water lotus is finally over, Jian Wushuang commented while he looked around. Over. It was over. The 7 black water lotus seeds had found owners, and even the black water lotus was eventually taken by Jian Wushuang after a fierce fight. Indeed, the fighting had completely come to an end. Although it was over, the fight today would become a topic that people loved to talk about. It was destined to spread throughout the Tianzong dynasty soon. Meanwhile, the earthly dragon list would certainly alter its rankings. People would also have a deep impression of the name of swordsman and remember the ultimate fight on the mountain near Quiet Moon Lake today. A man in the initial gold core realm, who grasped 3 different sword essences at the same time, defeated Xiao Mang. Such a brilliant record was enough to make the world praise him, making it easy for him to be ranked on the earthly dragon list. However, while people around were still talking about the fight between swordsman and Xiao Mang, an unremarkable skinny man appeared in the crowd. The skinny man only reached the initial gold core realm. He also participated in the fight for the black water lotus, but only had a mediocre performance. Thus, nobody would notice him. But at this moment, the man was ruthlessly gazing in the direction of Jian Wushuang. A black-robed swordsman. He is only in the initial gold core realm, yet he has grasped 3 different sword essences with an extremely high level of comprehension. Yes, he is Jian Wushuang, the target of the Scarlet Kill Command, Jian Wushuang. After confirmation, the skinny man immediately went to deliver the message. Soon night fell. Though the moonlight was bright and clear, its light could not reach into the endless mountain range, so it was still dark in there. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. A series of dark figures hastily swept through the woods like ghosts. It wasn't long before they reached a forest near Quiet Moon Lake and stopped. All these men were dressed in black robes, wearing masks on their faces. There were 12 of them in total, among whom 10 wore gold masks, while the other 2 wore purple masks. 10 assassins with gold masks and 2 assassins with purple masks. This was the battle formation arranged by Bloodfeather Tower this time. The target is right in front of us. One of the purple-masked assassins spoke in a low voice. Blood Shadow Team 1 and Team 2, you move first. make sure to find the right opportunity and kill him with one hit. Don't make the two of us get involved." The two purple-masked assassins had some scruples, so they wouldn't move if the circumstances permitted. The 10 gold-masked assassins stood there, cold as ice. Among them, the leader of the gold-masked assassins laughed and said, "He is just a disciple of Dragon Palace in the initial Gold Core realm. His perception of the realms is higher than an average person. But so what? Blood Shadow Team 1 and Team 2 are moving at the same time, which is already giving him face. As for you two, please just watch." Darkblader, "You'd better not look down on the target. According to the information we received from today's fight over the Blackwater Lotus, he defeated Xiaomang, who is ranked 22nd on the Earthly Dragon list. Do not forget that Xiaomang's ranking on the Earthly Dragon list is above you," the purple-masked assassin said in a low voice. "So what?" The gold-masked assassin, Darkblader, still dismissed it and said, "I'm an assassin, so direct slaughter is not my forte. But once I find a chance, even those who rank in the top 10 on the Earthly Dragon list will die, let alone someone ranked 22nd. Darkblader was full of confidence, but he was indeed qualified to say this. Darkblader, he ranked 41st on the Earthly Dragon list. Although his ranking was below 40, his real identity was an assassin of Blood Feather Tower. As an assassin, when found the right opportunity, he was an extremely terrifying assassin. Anyway, be careful. Don't forget that he is the target of a Scarlet Kill command, ordered personally by Sir Grerobe. This time, we must kill him no matter what. If we fail, we will all be executed." The purple-masked assassin had a serious expression. "Remember, don't give him a chance. Kill him in one hit, and then leave immediately. Go." Once the purple-masked assassin finished speaking, the 10 gold-masked assassins immediately set out. Chapter 116. Chapter 116. A Perfect Assassination. Near Quiet Moon Lake, a charcoal fire was burning brightly, and the area was filled with noise. It was near nightfall when the fight for the Blackwater Lotus finished. Therefore, most of the warriors were still here. A number of warriors in the Gold Core realm gathered together in 2s or 3s, busy talking about the magnificent battle between Jian Wushuang and Xiaomang. Who is the black-robed swordsman? How does a warrior in the initial Gold Core realm have such terrifying battle strength? His name seems to be Swordsman. It is said that he is a disciple of Dragon Palace. A disciple of Dragon Palace? So that is why he is powerful. Those warriors of the Gold Core realm glanced, from time to time, towards the black-robed adolescent who was practicing his sword skills. The black-robed adolescent brandished his long sword, slowly practicing his sword skills. Seeing one slash followed by another one, people suffered from a delusion that his sword chopping into a pall of cotton instead of the air. Extremely weird. The experts with relatively sharp eyes immediately recognized what was happening. Essence of the water drop. It's essence of the water drop. Swordsman comprehended essence of the water drop. He had already comprehended the sword essences of Gale, Earth, and Raging Fire sword before. Now, he has comprehended sword essence of the water drop. He has comprehended 4 different essences. Everyone looked at Jian Wushuang with surprise. Exceptional genius. Monster. 4 different sword essences at the same time. Quite brave, isn't he? After a round of loud exclamation, everyone present was astonished. The expressions of the experts from the Earthly Dragon list were also complex. A man who comprehending 4 essences at the same time should be regarded as crazy rather than courageous. Jian Wushuang actually dared to do it. But it was not impossible for him to comprehend 4 essences at the same time after the awakening of Sword Soul. The two assassin teams, called Blood Shadow, were hiding on the top of a big tree near Jian Wushuang while he was practicing. The leader, Darkblader, stared at Jian Wushuang with his dark eyes. Sword essence of the water drop, Darkblader was also surprised. After all, he was informed that Jian Wushuang had comprehended 3 different sword essences: Gale, Earth, and Raging Fire. It's very brave for Jian Wushuang to comprehend 4 sword essences at the same time, Darkblader mocked. He's concentrating right now as he practices his swordsmanship. The possibility of a sneak attack succeeding is very low if I attack now. The best time would be the instant he puts his sword away after finishing his practice. At that moment, his attention and concentration will wander. Those golden-masked assassins were waiting silently. The sword light was fleeting like a wave, soft but tough. One move after another. They looked slow, but every move contained a mighty power. The sword light suddenly stabbed toward the void and engendered a stream of a substantial wave. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and slightly smiled. It's indeed the black water lotus seed which induced such a bloody fight. I easily comprehended sword essence of the water drop soon after swallowing it, and my comprehension has even reached the 4th level of the Dragon Gate. To normal warriors of the Gold Core realm, comprehension that reached the 4th level of the Dragon Gate was very high. Even Jian Wushuang barely squeaked through the 4th level by earnestly cultivating for 3 months before joining Dragon Palace. But now his comprehension in sword essence of the water drop easily reached this level because of the black water lotus seed. Exhaling a breath, Jian Wushuang put away his sword without realizing the hidden peril that surrounded him. At the same time, he was putting away his sword. Now is our chance. The hidden Darkblader silently floated down, like a phantom, towards Jian Wushuang. At this time, Jian Wushuang's expression relaxed. Third brother. Su Ro, who had been watching Jian Wushuang, walked toward him and said, "Congratulations! You have comprehended another sword essence." After congratulating Jian Wushuang on his breakthrough, she suddenly sensed a hint of crisis from her heart. Even the target, Jian Wushuang, didn't sense it, but Su Ro sensed it. "Third brother, watch out!" Su Ro shouted suddenly. "What?" Jian Wushuang became alarmed, and all his pores opened in an instant. A sense of unprecedented crisis filled Jian Wushuang. Then a black light emerged silently behind Jian Wushuang with a cold and dark luster. It was so fast that Jian Wushuang did not have time to respond. Comprehend 4 sword essences. So what? Defeated Xiao Mang. So what? You finished your practice just now. Your previous concentration of sense and spirit are wandering. Right now is when you are the most vulnerable. With the darkness as cover, this is the perfect opportunity to assassinate you. It will be a perfect assassination. Even experts ranked in the top 10 on the earthly dragon list would not be able to escape. You will die. Darkblader smiled coldly. At this time, he could see the image of Jian Wushuang being killed by him. However, a swift gust of wind rushed forward, followed by 2 streams of wind passed through the space and appeared in front of him. His black light, which nearly stabbed into Jian Wushuang, was parried by the wind. How could that be? Darkblader was surprised. He had been confident in this assassination. Jian Wushuang was not able to react and was going to die. The truth was that Jian Wushuang didn't react. However, Su Ro made it. Su Ro not only perceived, but even parried this killing attack. He realized that terrifying burst of power came from Su Ro. This woman, Darkblader looked at Su-Ro in shock. How could she react? Such a perfect assassination. Only an expert in the Yin-Yang Void realm should have been able to respond. So how did she react in time? That cold and dark black light was parried by 2 jets of wind. However, the power of the black light was much stronger, so the wind was easily destroyed. Subsequently, the black light still stabbed toward Jian Wushuang. Thanks to the wind hindering the black light, for a while, Jian Wushuang was able to swerve drastically. Watching as this black light approached his body to within less than half a centimeter, his pores immediately opened and cold sweat ran down his back. But in the next moment, an endless anger erupted. Blood Feather Tower. Seeing this gold-masked figure, killing intent poured out from Jian Wushuang's eyes. Go to hell. Boom. After a swift and violent explosion of sword essence, a foggy sword shadow, which was extremely aggressive, headed for Darkblader. Not good. Darkblader felt a sense of fear in his heart. He was well versed in assassination. He was much weaker in direct combat. Then he quickly parried with the black light. Bang! The terrifying foggy sword shadow pounded on the black light, which was a cold black dagger. But the terrifying power of the attack caused the black dagger to slide out of Darkblader's hand. Many figures rushed towards Jian Wushuang as he attacked Darkblader again, trying to kill him directly. Chapter 117. Chapter 117, Blood Shadow Team. Many ghostly figures rushed towards Jian Wushuang from all directions, with the black sharp edges in their hands aimed at his vital parts, stabbing out at tricky angles. These ghostly figures were the other 9 members of the Blood Shadow Team. Although the gold-masked assassins of the 2 teams were not as good as the Darkblader in terms of strength, they were still top-ranked assassins. Most of them had enough strength to assassinate experts on the Earthly Dragon list. Go to hell! With a heavy outburst, a powerful sword essence was released, and Jian Wushuang lashed out with his triple kill sword. Sword light passed by silently, but suddenly there were many strange waves rippling in the air. These waves contained terrible impact force, directly spreading out in all directions. Bang! 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 After 9 consecutive loud noises, the 9 gold-masked assassins that had rushed in were all expelled directly and relentlessly. They were knocked several meters away before they finally managed to regain their balance. There was a little shock in the eyes of gold-masked assassins. As gold-masked assassins, especially assassins in the Blood Shadow Team, each of them had reached the peak of the exceptional Gold Core realm. Although they were not as powerful as the experts on the Earthly Dragon list, they were not far away from them. If it was an assassination, each of them had the strength to assassinate experts on the Earthly Dragon list. But now, all 9 people were pushed back by Jian Wushuang with only 1 move. What was the strength? As for the Darkblader, who was the first one knocked back by Jian Wushuang, his dark eyes squinted suddenly, not looking at Jian Wushuang, but Su-Ro. He was very clear on how perfect the assassination attempt was just now. Jian Wushuang should have definitely died, but this perfect assassination failed because of Su-Ro. This woman is weird, said Darkblader in a low voice. Everything happened too fast. Starting with the first attack from Darkblader, then the 9 gold-masked assassins who were repelled by Jian Wushuang with only 1 move. In fact, all this happened in a split second. However, many of the warriors beside Quiet Moon Lake did not realize what happened until it was already over. What happened? What a terrifying atmosphere. What's wrong? Swordsman, it's swordsmen. Are those gold-masked men from Blood Feather Tower? It's Blood Feather Tower. All right. They are gold-masked assassins from Blood Feather Tower. What's more, There are 10 gold-masked assassins in total, and all of them have come for swordsmen. Do people in Bloodfeather Tower want to kill swordsmen? There was quite a commotion around the whole Quiet Moon Lake. All the warriors immediately looked there, but they were shocked by what they saw. But there was nothing they could do. Bloodfeather Tower was synonymous with terrible in the Tianzong dynasty. Faced with the top assassin organization in Tianzong dynasty, everyone was afraid. Normally, the people that Bloodfeather Tower wanted to kill would have no chance of surviving. Bloodfeather Tower. There was a heavy killing intent in Jian Wushuang's eyes, but his heart shrank when he looked at all these gold-masked assassins. He knew that since assassins from Bloodfeather Tower were here, it meant that his identity had been exposed. According to the assassination style of Bloodfeather Tower, since they had attacked, they must be prepared. Although the 10 gold-masked assassins in front of him could threaten him, he was sure that this was not all Bloodfeather Tower had prepared. Bloodfeather Tower, how dare you try to assassinate a disciple of Dragon Palace? Are you not afraid that Dragon Palace will seek revenge? Jian Wushuang shouted, and his voice spread out over the area. A disciple of Dragon Palace. Is Swordsman really a disciple of Dragon Palace? Just play a joke. He is just an initial completion of the Golden Pill realm with so powerful battle strength that only the eccentric genius of Dragon Palace can do it. All the surrounding warriors were scared, and no one dared to intervene. Bloodfeather Tower. Xiao Mang, who was sitting cross-legged under a big tree, also saw the scene that was occurring beside Quiet Moon Lake. His brows slightly wrinkled, but he immediately shook his head slowly after that. Normally, he might help Jian Wushuang. After all, Jian Wushuang had given him a bottleneck-breaking pill today, so he felt a great amount of gratitude towards Jian Wushuang that he would not forget. However, his spiritual power had been exhausted in the fight earlier, and he had not recovered enough yet to be able to offer any help. Therefore, Jian Wushuang could only fend for himself. Of course, Jian Wushuang never thought that someone would come to help him. His purpose was merely to spread his identity. That way, regardless of whether he lived or died today, Bloodfeather Tower would suffer the crazy revenge of Dragon Palace later. Dragon Palace put a lot of emphasis on protecting their disciples. Whoever bullied the disciples of Dragon Palace would not have a good ending unless Dragon Palace never knew about it. And Jian Wushuang had shocked the whole Dragon Palace by passing through the 11th level of the Dragon Gate. Now, the two palace masters and the temple masters of Dragon Palace thought that Jian Wushuang was an extremely rare genius. Once such a genius was killed, Dragon Palace would feel so much pain that their revenge would be much more malicious. Jian Wushuang, Darkblader said, "Today, don't talk about the Dragon Palace. Even the gods can't help you. You will die. Nobody can save you. Come on, kill him." As his voice faded, Darkblader took the lead, and the 9 gold-masked assassins followed. "You," Jian Wushuang smirked, and his figure turned ghostly. Shoo! A sword shadow appeared silently in front of one of the gold-masked assassins. Without any time for him to respond, in just a blink, this gold-masked assassin was directly killed by the sword edge which passed through his neck, followed by another ghostly image of Jian Wushuang. Shua! The same silent sword swept past the throat of another gold-masked assassin. What happened? The rest of the gold-masked assassins were shocked. This is... Darkblader also glowered. 2 gold-masked assassins were instantly killed in just a moment, but they did not even see the Jian Wushuang's figure. Fast. He was too fast. Not only the speed of his body, but also the speed of his sword. Formless sword arts, 6th move. The 2 purple-masked assassins, standing side by side on a tree in the forest, gazed intently. Such a large error in the intelligence report. Jian Wushuang is much stronger than reported, and the woman beside him is also weird. She was able to respond to that perfect assassination attempt by Darkblader, murmured a purple-masked assassin. It is too late to talk about that. Now that we have taken action, there is no way out. It is obvious that Darkblader cannot kill Jian Wushuang, so it's up to you, murmured the other purple-masked assassin. If I join in the fight, he will definitely die. The first purple-masked assassin nodded slightly, then his figure direct rushed out. Chapter 118. Chapter 118. Exerting the utmost strength. Die! The long sword in Jian Wushuang's hand silently appeared in front of the third gold-masked assassin, and he was directly killed without putting up any resistance. How could that be? How is he so fast? The remaining gold-masked assassins were horrified. They didn't know that Jian Wushuang's comprehension in Sword Essence of Gale was so high that he could execute the sixth move of the Formless Sword Arts. The Formless Sword Arts were known as the top sword skill in the Tianzong dynasty. How could it not be terrifyingly powerful? The sixth move truly was extremely powerful. The sixth move could not be executed in the fight against Xiao Mang because his comprehension of the essence of Gale was deeper. Xiao Mang was also stronger than Jian Wushuang, so this move could not threaten Xiao Mang. However, when Jian Wushuang used it against these gold-masked assassins, who were not on the earthly dragon list, the Formless Sword Arts could massacre them. These gold-masked assassins had no chance to fight back against the speed released by Jian Wushuang's sword. The fourth one. Jian Wushuang's sword slashed out again. Covering a distance of more than 10 meters instantaneously, the sword pierced the fourth gold-masked assassin's throat. However, after he killed the fourth gold-masked assassin. What? Jian Wushuang lifted his head quickly as a black figure appeared in his sight. The black figure had arrived in front of him in an instant from a distance of more than 10 meters. This speed, Jian Wushuang was surprised upon seeing the black figure's palm that was thrusting towards his head. Jian Wushuang was shocked by the power contained in this palm attack. He would instantly die without question if this blow landed on his head. At this critical moment, the triple kill sword in Jian Wushuang's hand directly stabbed through the voice toward the center of the incoming palm. Bang! The sword edge of the triple kill sword collided with that palm. However, the triple kill sword failed to pierce the palm, and the palm suppressed Jian Wushuang with irresistible and terrifying power. Jian Wushuang felt a mighty force being transmitted through his arm. Then he sprayed a jet of blood out of his mouth as his body fiercely shot backward, like a bullet. Bang! Jian Wushuang's figure was knocked back on the ground by more than 10 meters, with the ground cracking as his figure was continued rolling. It did not stop until his body rolled into Quiet Moon Lake. The whole Quiet Moon Lake immediately became still. Everyone looked, their mouths agape, at the black-robed figure hovering in the void. There was a man in a black robe and purple mask, but the most important part was that he was standing in the air. His identity was instantly clear. Purple-masked assassin, Inyang Void Realm. A purple-masked assassin from Bloodfeather Tower came to kill Jian Wushuang himself. Swordsman is going to die. He is done. Everybody was shocked. There were few experts of the Inyang Void Realm in the Tianzong dynasty. It was very unlikely to meet one of these experts. The purple-masked assassin from Bloodfeather Tower was exceedingly more powerful than normal experts of the Inyang Void Realm. Nobody present thought that Jian Wushuang, merely in the initial Gold Core realm, could still be alive after the attack from the purple-masked assassin. Third brother. seeing Jian Wushuang slowly sinking into Quiet Moon Lake, Su Ro's beautiful expression grew hideous and her killing intent burst out. "You will die." Staring at the purple-masked assassin, a blast of air surged from Su Ro's body. Su Ro had released this wind several times, but this time was the strongest. This terrifying wind astonished the purple-masked assassin, and he instantly looked at Su Ro. This girl, seeing the increasingly terrifying wind that was released by Su Ro, the purple-masked assassin's mouth twitched. He felt that Su Ro was incredibly dangerous. Su Ro coldly stared at the purple-masked assassin, and a cold voice emerged from her. "Asshole! Go die!" The huge sword was slashed out. Swoosh! The great sword was outclassing over, and it was easy to pass through the void, so that there was an awkward windbreak in the air. The sturdy sword edge also swept from the ground and crashed. The ground suddenly cracked, a large crack that is more than 2 meters wide. An enormous power soared into the sky with an overwhelming aura. Gathering his look, he became careful. The purple-masked killer, clenching his right hand, the spiritual power burst out. Without hesitation, a fist was shaken with anger, and when it came out, a crisp explosion from his body also rang through the world. Bang! After the collision between them, the purple-masked assassin groaned, and his body immediately flew backwards, crashing into a large tree that was tens of meters away. Crack! Apparently, the tree could not bear the terrifying force, so it directly splintered. This stream of power, looking at his still tingling palms, the purple-masked assassin looked at Su Ro in a different way. "The girl is from that place. I cannot kill her." After exerting her strongest move, the aura of Su Ro's body had already begun to diminish. There was also sweat on her beautiful face. Obviously, she did not have enough force to attack again. However, while clenching her jaw, Su Ro still stared at the purple-masked assassin. "I don't dare to kill you." The purple-masked assassin shook his head. Without any thoughts of tangling with Su Ro, his figure flew out and appeared over Quiet Moon Lake. As for Su Ro, all she could do was watch him. "Third brother." Staring at the lake's surface, Su Ro began trembling. Jian Wushuang had disappeared, and the surface of the lake was placid. In Quiet Moon Lake, Jian Wushuang was surrounded with endless lake water as his eyes opened. Wah! A load of blood surged from his mouth. Compared with Gold Core realm warriors, experts of the Yin-Yang Void realm were much stronger. A mere palm attack was enough to seriously injure him. He even felt like his internal organs had been completely rearranged. He was in extreme pain. It was all he could do to face that attack one time. If it came again, he would definitely die. I was sure that they would not send only 10 gold-masked assassins, since Blood Feather Tower wants to kill me. And I was right. But it was beyond my expectation that Blood Feather Tower would send a purple-masked assassin to kill a warrior in the initial Gold Core realm. Although Jian Wushuang was seriously injured, the battle intent in his eyes was still powerful. "This time, I will use my full strength." Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, and his eyes blinked with a vestige of insanity. Soul devouring. Secret skill. Quiet Moon Lake quaked. Jian Wushuang's body seemed to be a black hole that could devour everything as a stream of natural power from all things of the universe rushed into his body at an amazing speed. With the natural power being injected, Jian Wushuang's aura began to soar. It had been 1 year. Now, Jian Wushuang was executing the soul-devouring secret skill again. He was in a desperate fight. Chapter 119. Chapter 119. Boom, boom, boom. 2 meters above Quiet Moon Lake, a purple-masked assassin was floating and looking down with cold eyes. Is he dead? The lake was quiet, but Jian Wushuang had already sunk into it. However, suddenly, in the center of Quiet Moon Lake, a huge whirlpool took shape and began rapidly expanding to swallow the whole lake, which made the great lake crazily stir. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of stirring water was spread through the area like a windstorm generating in the center of the lake. What happened? What on earth happened? What's the whirlpool? Standing beside Quiet Moon Lake, a great many warriors of the Gold Core realm were astonished. Look at the ground. When that sudden cry sounded, those warriors looked down at the ground right away. However, what they saw made their hair stand on end. At this moment, the vibrant earth was turning into a bleak one at an amazingly fast speed. The original deep green was gradually changing into a dry yellow. On top of that, there were even cracks slowly appearing on the ground. Dull, silent. Everyone was frightened. While watching what was happening around Quiet Moon Lake, the purple-masked assassin above the lake became dour, and then his eyes flashed with killing intent. Whatever he is doing, I will kill him. The purple-masked assassin reached out his right hand and heavily slapped toward the center of the whirlpool. A magnificent spiritual power was released. In an instant, a massive palm, totally generated by spiritual power, appeared on the lake. The palm seemed to arrive from ancient times, exuding a very horrible smell. Hum! The purple-masked assassin hummed as his massive palm, like a small mountain, dove toward the core of the whirlpool, slowly exerting its power. Warriors beside the Quiet Moon Lake couldn't help holding their breath when they saw that massive palm. But at that moment, whoosh, suddenly, a cold sword light rose from Quiet Moon Lake as it slowly magnified in their eyes, rushing upward. Immediately, the whole area became thoroughly dark. Only that sword light remained in the vast and extremely dark void. The sword light was ice-cold, dazzling, and destructive. After abruptly rising from the bottom of Quiet Moon Lake, the sword light rushed toward the sky and instantly struck against the massive palm. The sword light pierced into the center of the palm. Bang! An ear-splitting boom reverberated through the void. Two kinds of horrible strength directly struck against each other, which immediately generated many tangible airflows. Then, those airflows were transformed into a blast wave that swept out in a destructive manner. Hum! It was just like a star exploding. The horrible blast wave crazily rushed out in all directions. At that moment, the wave blew every warrior of the Gold Core realm who stood by Quiet Moon Lake hither and thither. Worse still, some of them directly spit blood and retreated. The mass of trees growing by the lake was also swept away by the blast wave, many of which were instantly uprooted, while some of them directly broke at the base of their trunks. The heaven and earth were in ruin, and it seemed to be the end of the world. How did this happen? That purple-masked assassin was totally astonished, looking at the soaring sword light in amazement. It seemed to be all-conquering as it directly pierced into the center of the massive palm. A terrible piercing force violently radiated from the sword light. Within just a moment, the massive palm which he displayed with all his strength was directly split. After that, the sword edge swept out, shredding the palm into pieces. Swoosh! Even after splitting the massive palm, the sword light still rushed toward the sky with rolling sword essence. And then, following that, bang! A massive spray of water abruptly gushed out from the bottom of Quiet Moon Lake, and then a black figure directly rushed upward with an arrogant sword essence and an incredibly terrifying aura. In the next moment, he had already appeared in front of the purple-masked assassin. Old bastard, you enjoyed it, didn't you? Jian Wushuang calmly looked at the purple-masked assassin. Although the assassin's appearance could not be seen clearly, Jian Wushuang could infer that he was an old guy by his figure and voice. The purple-masked assassin had not completely recovered from his astonishment. Now it's my turn. Jian Wushuang's cold grin resembled that of a blade. Jian Wushuang didn't show his sword arts. Instead, he sheathed his triple-kill sword. Then, just using his fists, he began directly punching towards the purple-masked assassin's face. Boom! The outburst of terrifying power made a fearsome wind sound when Jian Wushuang waved his fist through the air. After all, Jian Wushuang was currently using the soul-devouring secret skill. By devouring nature and absorbing the natural power in the area for hundreds of meters, his spiritual power was pushed to the peak of the exceptional gold core realm. But he possessed a supreme gold core, which was 100 times stronger than an expert in the same realm. After a complete outburst, his strength settled at the peak of the exceptional gold core realm. The strength that radiated out was much more terrifying than the average yin-yang void realm. You must want to go to the hell. Seeing Jian Wushuang directly use his fist, without any sword skills, the purple-masked killer raged and used his fist, releasing the peak of his strength. At that moment, two fists were rushing towards a head-on collision. Crack! Only the sound of bones cracking was heard. Then, in the next moment, the purple-masked assassin uttered a grievous cry. "My arm!" Staring with extreme rage in his eyes, the purple-masked assassin was aware that the bones in his right arm were completely shattered. His right arm had been disabled in this head-on, fist-to-fist battle. "It is you that will go to the hell." Jian Wushuang thundered again, and then immediately kicked towards him. The purple-masked assassin was unable to make any response, heavily falling on the ground and instantly creating a 1-meter depth hole with his falling force. Afterwards, the killer simply laid in the hole while blood leaked from his mouth. It was uncertain whether he was dead or not. Dull. All the warriors around Quiet Moon Lake were dull. What did they just witness? A warriors of the Gold Core realm defeating a supreme expert in the real yin-yang void realm, even beating him until he was almost dead in an instant. Furthermore, he didn't use his sword. With a distorted face and bloodshot eyes, Jian Wushuang was dying to thoroughly kill the purple-masked assassin who lay in the deep hole with an unknown lifespan remaining. However, a frightening aura swept through the area, indicating that there was another purple-masked assassin. All the warriors in the area stared with wide eyes when they saw it. Another purple-masked assassin. Chapter 120. Chapter 120. The Line Between Death and Life. Chu. A cold black light rushed toward Jian Wushuang as a terrifying aura directly locked onto him. Naturally, it was from the second purple-masked assassin. This purple-masked assassin had been hiding in the dark. He did not intend to show himself, but he never expected that things would go this way. Two teams of the Blood Shadow had joined the fight. Jian Wushuang killed 4 of them in only a moment, but the Blood Shadow teams had not even managed to touch his shadow. Then, the first purple-masked assassin had fought against Jian Wushuang in person. The result was that he was defeated and sprawled out in a huge hole near Jian Wushuang. It was even uncertain whether he was alive or dead. He had no choice but to show himself. One more? Get lost! Jian Wushuang roared and angrily hacked his triple-kill sword toward the second purple-masked assassin with a steam of scorching and fiery sword essence of raging fire. Sword skill of blood and fire, the 6th move. That cold black light also rushed toward the second purple-masked assassin. Bang! Jian Wushuang could not help stumbling back several steps, as did the purple-masked assassin. The strength of the second purple-masked assassin is much stronger than that of the first one. Jian Wushuang thought secretly. Warriors of the Gold Core realm had differences between strong and weak, so did warriors of the Yin Void realm. The same situation was true for those purple-masked assassins. The second purple-masked assassin's strength was much stronger than that of the first purple-masked assassin, who was pulverized by Jian Wushuang. Go to hell! Again, that purple-masked assassin stabbed out ferociously with his black dagger. It seemed that the stab could pierce through the heavens, and a cacophony resounded through the void. Ridiculous! With a sneer, Jian Wushuang waved his triple-kill sword and slashed out directly with a strong burst of sword essence of Gale. But the speed of his sword was faster than that of the black dagger in the purple-masked assassin's hand. Clang! The sparks made by the clashing of the two blades was very showy in the night sky. Jian Wushuang moved his wrist, and the long sword flexibly bypassed the black dagger. Then, while radiating sword essence of earth, he hacked out his sword. Obviously, the purple-masked assassin was battle-hardened. Without any panic, he waved his black dagger forward angrily. Bang! With another low and deep sound, the heavy and vast sword essence of earth released a huge amount of power. In addition, the power released from the soul-devouring secret skill executed by Jian Wushuang far exceeded that of common warriors in the Yin Void realm. As these two huge powers contained in the Jian Wushuang's sword move crashed against that black dagger, the purple-masked assassin became nervous. However, in the place where two sword edges clashed, a wave-like essence spread out. This wave was the impact force from the clash between the two blades. And, although it was not worth mentioning to Jian Wushuang and that purple-masked assassin, the blast wave generated right in front of the purple-masked assassin, so it naturally reached his face first. Bang! As soon as the blast wave struck that assassin's purple mask, this wicked and frightening purple mask cracked directly in front of everyone. When the mask cracked and broke away from his face, a pretty and refined face appeared, but this face was hideous at this moment. It's you! When Jian Wushuang saw this face, a sharp light suddenly flashed in his eyes. Most warriors of the Gold Core realm near Quiet Moon Lake also saw this face, and some of them recognized him with a single glance. It's him! Lin Yun! It's Lord Lin Yun! It really Lord Lin Yun! Lin Yun, the governor of Blizzard City. Many warriors of the Gold Core realm who recognized his face felt it was unbelievable. Lin Yun, it's you! Jian Wushuang was surprised too. He happened to have met Lin Yun once at the Golden Dragon subsidiary palace in Moonheart City. At that time, Lin Yun gave people the impression of gentleness, elegance, and courtesy. With such a good reputation, he seemed to be a good person 100%. Nearly everyone who knew Lin Yun respected him very much. But who could have thought that such a good person was a purple-masked assassin from Bloodfeather Tower? You hit so deeply, Jian Wushuang said in a low voice. At this moment, Lin Yun's face was hideous instead of gentle. Damn it! Lin Yun cursed secretly in his heart. The reason why he did not show himself before was that he was afraid of exposing his identity. He did not intend to appear and help kill Jian Wushuang unless he had no choice. But he had never thought the battle strength which Jian Wushuang released would be so strong. Now his identity was exposed in front of so many people. Regardless of whether he killed Jian Wushuang or not today, he no longer had a place to return to in the Tianzong dynasty, because regardless of the risks, Dragon Palace would kill him. Now that my identity has been exposed, I just need to focus on killing him first. Lin Yun's eyes were full of killing intent. Then, a moment later, a lavender long spear appeared in his hand. This long spear was his real weapon, He only used the black dagger to hide his identity. Go to hell. Lin Yun instantly made his move, his body appearing in front of Jian Wushuang in the blink of an eye as he directly thrust out his lavender-long spear. Without any sound, this stab was just like a flickering serpent's tongue. Jian Wushuang only felt his body was locked in place. When this silent spear stabbed towards him, he had no way to avoid it at all. Essence of the water drop. Has Lin Yun's comprehension in essence of the water drop reached such a high level? Jian Wushuang was frightened. Just now, when Lin Yun used that black dagger to attack, he employed essence of gale. Although his comprehension was rather high, Jian Wushuang could handle it. But now Lin Yun was using the long spear with essence of the water drop, which was terrible. This spear can absolutely pass the 11th level of the Dragon Gate easily. It was even close to the 12th level. Jian Wushuang instantly executed the reincarnation sword art in an attempt to block this move, although he turned back one spear. With another burst of strength, Lin Yun's spear shadows rushed towards Jian Wushuang successively, one by one. Clang, 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 clang. Jian Wushuang did his utmost to fight against Lin Yun, but in his heart he had already lost the intent to fight. After all, what he had executed was the soul-devouring secret skill. The soul-devouring secret skill was terrifying, but it was a unique skill that came with a price. Using it caused great damage to himself as well as his opponent. Therefore, Jian Wushuang could not last much longer. The sharp pain in his body meant that he had reached the limit. Not only that, Jian Wushuang's eyes were red and tendons stood out on his forehead. Obviously, he was very close to his breaking point. Boom! A vast sword shadow directly pushed Lin Yun back. Then Jian Wushuang turned around and ran away. Run! 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 Jian Wushuang was crazily roaring in his heart. However, the direction he ran was exactly towards the area where Su Ro and the gold-masked assassins stood. Third brother, Su Ro looked at Jian Wushuang with concern on her face. Jian Wushuang was exhausted both mentally and physically, but when he saw 6 living gold-masked assassins directly ahead of him, the killing intent in his eyes was rapidly increased again. Chapter 121, The Roar from the Abyss. Chapter 121, The Roar from the Abyss. All of you can go to hell. With a thundering sound, Jian Wushuang suddenly flitted past those 6 gold-masked assassins like a ghost. Before these 6 golden mask killers, including Darkblader, head of them could make a response, their throats felt stung, and then there disappeared both their sound and breath. While Jian Wushuang was using the soul-devouring secret skill, he almost beat the purple-masked assassin to death. Killing these gold-masked assassins was very easy for him. Do you think you can escape? Lin Yun took a deep breath and looked at his black robe. Then he chased after Jian Wushuang. As for the loss of those gold-masked assassins, it was not important to him. After killing those 6 gold-masked assassins, Jian Wushuang fled into the woods. But Lin Yun appeared above the woods, standing in the air. One was standing in midair, while the other was fleeing through the woods in a rushed manner, using the trees to hide his presence. Those 2 terrifying auras moved off into the distance. Near Quiet Moon Lake, a lot of warriors in the Gold Core realm watched what was happening. The events they just witnessed had caused huge waves in their hearts. What did they just see? A total of 10 gold-masked assassins came to kill swordsmen, but all of them were killed. Not a single one of them was left alive. Then a purple-masked assassin appeared and fought against Jian Wushuang in person, but the result was that he was defeated and currently sprawled out in a huge pit on the ground. It was still unclear if he was alive or dead. What had caused the land within a few hundred meters to dry out, become brown, and lose its vitality so easily. Then a second purple-masked assassin appeared, Lin Yun, who was in fact the governor of Blizzard City. Like a bomb, these scenes were exploding in the minds of these warriors, leaving them deep in thought. There was no way. So amazing. Each scene was unbelievably amazing. Even now, Lin Yun was still chasing after swordsmen. Hurry up. Let's follow them. Hurry up and follow. Let's watch and see if swordsmen can escape. Haha, what an unprecedented battle. It was far more exciting than the battle with Xiao Mang. Hurry up so we can go. A large number of warriors were suddenly storming out, chasing after Jian Wushuang and Lin Yun as if they were the tide. Wushuang, please run faster and escape. Please. Su Ro was praying and clenching her beautiful hands as she rushed to the forefront. In a forest, swoosh, terrifying spear shadows bombarded towards Jian Wushuang like thunderbolts as he shifted his body so fast that the spears struck the tree he was standing on instead. The overwhelming power of the attack caused the big tree, together with others around it, to splinter. His face was red, and the tendons stood out under his skin, but a strong desire for survival could still be seen in Jian Wushuang's eyes. I still have the chance to survive. There is still a chance. Raising his head, Jian Wushuang fixed his eyes steadfastly on a majestic mountain that was not far away, behind which the abyss was located. It was recognized as the most dangerous area in the endless mountain range. The abyss may be a dead end for others, but for him it was the last chance at survival. Jian Wushuang was crazily roaring in his heart, "Hold on, hold on." After he stopped using the soul-devouring secret skill, his aura had declined, but the damage caused by the incredibly overwhelming increase in power from using the skill was beginning to show. He felt like his internal organs were burning along with an unprecedented anguish. The pain was too strong and sharp for an ordinary person to bear, even for those experts of the Yin-Yang Void Realm, who were tremendously frightening. Clenching his teeth and hands, Jian Wushuang focused on keeping himself lucid. His fingernails were already digging into his flesh as he used his last bit of strength to stagger towards the abyss. He eventually made it to the top of the majestic mountain, in front of the abyss that lay between the two mountains. Not until he had arrived did he stop moving. Whoosh! But Lin Yun also arrived, staring at Jian Wushuang with his cold eyes. There were also many warriors following after him, all of which had eyes that were fixed on Jian Wushuang. They all wore complicated expressions that seemed to express their size, pity, and mercy above all. Everyone was well aware that Jian Wushuang had been driven into a corner. Behind him was the abyss, which could frighten anyone. In front of him stood Lin Yun, a legendary expert in the Yin-Yang Void Realm. He had no chances left. 10 gold-masked assassins together with 2 purple-masked assassins formed this group, which was enough to kill an expert of the Yin-Yang Void Realm. As a kid in the initial Gold Core realm, you should be proud to die at the hands of our Blood Feather Tower, Lin Yun said while staring at Jian Wushuang with his cold eyes. All that remains is for you to obediently accept your death. Lin Yun was approaching Jian Wushuang as he spoke. Jian Wushuang felt something surge into his throat. Then he coughed up a mouthful of blood. After wiping the blood from his mouth, he looked at Lin Yun, who was closing in on him. His lips were fraught with a strange smile. "Do you think you can kill me by yourself?" "Ha ha ha." Jian Wushuang burst into mad, almost hysterical, laughter. "My life can be taken by heaven, earth, or anyone else. But the people from Blood Feather Tower, only you will never be allowed to kill me." After saying that, Jian Wushuang glanced towards everyone present. Then he stepped back, rushed towards the abyss, and jumped in. In an instant, Jian Wushuang was overwhelmed by the cold wind from the abyss, but he roared at it, full of unyielding will, growling at the heaven and earth. Even if a dragon rises out of the blue sea, I would have no good feelings for Wu Tai. The day I return is the day all you demons die. If I live through this, I definitely turn Blood Feather Tower upside down. When I come back, his shout roared out, resonation with the abyss so much that it reverberated through the endless sky, leaving a lasting echo. Even the sky was shaking. It resonated with the land. All of heaven and earth was in shock. A number of warriors gathered near the abyss. They were pale at the moment because they could constantly hear the echoing of Jian Wushuang's words in their mind. The day I return is the day all you demons die. At that moment, everyone stopped breathing and fell into deep silence. Will he really come back? One of the warriors muttered. There was an old burly man standing next to him who shook his head and said, "If he dies, then everything will end here. But if there is a day where he really does return, I am afraid that Blood Feather Tower will come to an end." Chapter 122, Insane Retaliation. Chapter 122, Insane Retaliation. Silent. The whole abyss was full of dead silence. Linyan stepped forward and slowly walked toward the abyss, overlooking the deep abyss. His eyes were cold. The abyss, falling into the abyss is a death trap, even for me, let alone for you. You want to survive this. And come back. So stupid and naive. Linyan snorted. He didn't care about what Jian Wushuang had said at all. Linyan, a cold voice suddenly spoke. Linyan was filled with doubt. He turned and saw a terrifying aura radiating from the black-robed girl, Su Ro. Her beautiful and breathtaking eyes were frozen at that moment. "Tell your master," Su Ro said coldly, with a slightly trembling voice, "from today on, Blood Feather Tower will have no peace." Linyan's expression darkened. Anyone else who said that would have instantly been killed by Linyan, but this was Su Ro. Blood Feather Tower was a powerful group, but that was only in the Tianzong dynasty. There was a vast world outside of the Tianzong dynasty, in which there were many powers that were stronger than Blood Feather Tower. After seeing that special aura that radiated from her, he had a faint speculation about who she was. Therefore, he dared not kill her. Even so, he didn't care too much about what she had just said. Su Ro really had a very strong background. However, the background of Blood Feather Tower was not that simple, was it? "I will wait and see," said Lin Yun. Then he turned to leave. After Lin Yun left, the area around the abyss fell into an uproar. The next day, news about 2 summit battles at Quiet Moon Lake quickly blew through the whole Tianzong dynasty like a hurricane. People in Tianzong dynasty were shocked. The Gladiator Arena, the top chamber of commerce in Tianzong dynasty, had compiled a Millennium Chronicle since long ago. It recorded every influential event that happened in the Tianzong dynasty for nearly 1,000 years. It was on that day one more event was recorded in the Millennium Chronicle. Near Quiet Moon Lake, 2 summit battles happened. It not only recorded the battle for the Blackwater Lotus in detail, but also the fight that happened that night. The focus for both battles was one person, Swordsman. In the Millennium Chronicle, this is what was written about Swordsman. Swordsman, a warrior of the initial Gold Core realm and an exceptional genius who grasped 3 sword essences to an extremely high level at the same time. In the battle for the Blackwater Lotus, he fought with Xiao Meng, who ranked 22nd on the Earthly Dragon list. Finally, Xiao Meng was defeated. That night, 10 gold-masked assassins and 2 purple-masked assassins launched a lightning-fast assassination attempt. In the end, all 10 gold core assassins died. the right hand of a purple-masked assassin was broken, straddling the line between life and death. Another purple-masked assassin, Lin Yun, gave chase to finish killing Swordsman. At that point, Swordsman had no choice but to jump into the abyss. A genius fell. Sadly, unfortunately. In the Millennium Chronicle of the Gladiator Arena, Jian Wushuang was highly praised as a peerless genius. But unfortunately, he was forced to jump into the abyss. In everyone's opinion, falling into the abyss meant death. A large number of warriors in Tianzong dynasty felt sorry about that. At the same time, what Jian Wushuang said when he jumped into the abyss also spread throughout Tianzong dynasty. The day I return is the day all you demons die. Many people were shocked by his words and felt sorry for him. Some young men who had ambitions were greatly inspired when they heard that. They even hoped that one day Jian Wushuang would return with his sword and kill all the bad men. Over at Dragon Palace. Boom! A terrifying aura was rising, while at the same time a thick stream of killing intent radiated out. Palace Master White, a beauty in white, stood in the air over Dragon Palace. Her eyes were burning with anger. All the temple masters of Dragon Palace, come out! The loud voice echoed, shocking the whole Dragon Palace. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Figures swiftly appeared from all the nooks of Dragon Palace. They all used Void Walk and quickly gathered beside Palace Master White. As soon as the temple masters of Dragon Palace arrived and saw Palace Master White emitting such a strong killing intent from her eyes, they couldn't help shivering. "Sister White, what happened?" said Palace Master Black, who also came to her. "I have just heard news that Swordsman died," Palace Master White said coldly. "What? Swordsman? That little guy?" Suddenly, a heated discussion began around her. The temple masters did not look good. Swordsman, a peerless genius. All the temple masters were shocked by Jian Wushuang's talent and huge potential when he passed through the 11th level of the Dragon Gate not long ago. Palace Master Black even boldly asserted that Jian Wushuang's talent was no less than Crazy Knife's, who was the strongest on the Heavenly Dragon list for decades. It does not need to be said how important this was. Dragon Palace thought highly of such a peerless genius. Even a few days ago, the two palace masters and other temple masters carefully discussed how to cultivate swordsmen in the future when they discussed official business. But now, before they could cultivate him according to their plan, they heard that Swordsman died. How could they be not shocked? How could? The ones who killed Swordsman came from Blood Feather Tower. Palace Master White suddenly raised her head and said coldly, "Blood Feather Tower. Is it them? Damn it, they dare to assassinate our disciples." The temple masters were unable to restrain their fury. Both Golden Dragon Palace and Blood Feather Tower were powerful forces in Tianzong dynasty. The core of Golden Dragon Palace was Dragon Palace. Usually they did not interfere with each other, and Blood Feather Tower had never deliberately killed a disciple of Dragon Palace before. But this time they did it. Not just a normal disciple of Dragon Palace. They killed the most talented and excellent genius of this year's disciples. A peerless genius who they all had high expectations for. Assassinating disciples of Dragon Palace is a direct provocation towards Dragon Palace. Swordsman, the strongest genius in Dragon Palace this year, with a chance at becoming someone as strong as Crazy Knife, or to even reach a higher level. However, Blood Feather Tower killed him. An exceptional genius is gone. Palace Master White's face was cold, and the killing intent that surged from her was almost sharp enough to be used as a weapon. Palace Master White was the one with the highest expectations for Jian Wushuang. Even before he passed through the 11th level of the Dragon Gate, she even sought Jian Wushuang out in person when she thought he was headed down the wrong path. However, when she discovered that Jian Wushuang was correct, she was so surprised and happy for him. And she was also the saddest when she heard that Jian Wushuang died. "It seems our dragon palace has been low-key for too long," said Temple Master Yao of Fire Temple, whose eyes were frightening. "An exceptional genius of Dragon Palace was killed. We will be a joke in Tianzong Dynasty if we pretend that we don't know. Nothing to say, we have to get revenge. Yes, we have to get revenge and teach them a painful lesson." Soon Palace Master White led many experts of Dragon Palace and took action. Going through the whole Tianzong Dynasty, a bloody revenge towards Blood Feather Tower took place. Chapter 123, Ancestor's Land. Chapter 123, Ancestor's Land. After receiving the message that Jian Wushuang had passed away, both the senior leaders of Dragon Palace and his friends were furious. In a room of the manor where Jian Wushuang lived in, bang! Wang Yuan pounded a table, and the burst of his spiritual power immediately shattered the table. At the same time, waves of air rapidly swept through the surroundings. Third brother! How could he have died? Wang Yuan's fat body was trembling slightly. With rage in his eyes, his seemingly funny face had already become hideous. "Danjiu!" Wang Yuan shouted suddenly. Whoosh! A purple figure appeared in the room and stood in front of Wang Yuan respectfully. It was obvious that this man in purple didn't come from Dragon Palace. However, he had been staying in Dragon Palace this whole time, and the experts of Dragon Palace had no idea about it. "Young master," the purple figure, Danjiu, called, "I want to make the top assassin organization of Tianzong Dynasty Blood Feather Tower disappear completely. Are there any problems with that?" Wang Yuan looked at Danjiu coldly. "Blood Feather Tower?" Danjiu frowned slightly. "Young master, Tianzong Dynasty is beyond our control. I don't care about this. I only want to know, can you do it or not?" Wang Yuan shouted in a deep voice. "Yes." Danjiu nodded decisively. "Then do what I say." Wang Yuan shouted angrily again. "Yes." Danjiu left immediately. "Blood Feather Tower, my third brother." Wang Yuan clasped his hands, but in the next moment he became quiet. In the cellar of a golden dragon subsidiary palace in Tianyan province, third brother died. He jumped into the abyss because Blood Feather Tower was chasing him, wearing a blood-red robe and carrying a blood-red saber. Yang Zishuan got so angry after receiving the news that his killing intent immediately burst out and soared to the sky. "Give me all the information you have on Blood Feather Tower." Yang Zishuan shouted. "Yes." The person in charge of this golden dragon subsidiary palace took the order immediately. Blood Feather Tower. There was a tremendous cold light in his eyes. "From now on, there is only one goal for my enhancement: to kill all the assassins in Blood Feather Tower." In a secret chamber, the black-robed girl, Su Ro, looked coldly towards a golden paper that was in her hand. The paper was being burned using spiritual power. After the paper was completely burnt, an obscure figure appeared in front of Su Ro. "Master." Su Ro's voice was small and odd. "Little Ro, what happened?" The obscure figure said gently, "Master, one of my elder brothers died." Su Ro said, "Oh, tell me about it," the obscure figure asked. Su Ro did not waste time, briefly telling him what happened. After she finished speaking, "So, you want to take revenge for him, right?" asked the obscure figure. "Yes." Su Ro nodded slightly. "You used to be gentle, but now you are surrounded by killing intent. It's apparent that you valued your brother a lot in your heart. the obscure figure smiled and said, "I'll let a group of guards come and listen to you. From now on, they will stay with you to protect you." "I appreciate it a lot," Su Ro said gratefully. The obscure figure smiled, and then became a cloud of smoke and disappeared. The revenge of Dragon Palace against Blood Feather Tower began quickly and swiftly, leaving no breathing space. While Blood Feather Tower was frantically fending off the attacks of Dragon Palace, they discovered that there were two more terrifying forces besides Dragon Palace who also launched offensives against them. For a time, the top assassin organization of Tianzong Dynasty, Blood Feather Tower, was teetering on the edge, and all of this resulted from one person, Jian Wushuang. The entire Tianzong Dynasty was shaken by Jian Wushuang. However, at the same time, at the bottom edge of the abyss, a platform completely paved with bluestone floors was surrounded by a few clusters of flames. Jian Wushuang was lying on this platform. Though all his internal organs were damaged and there were some fractures in his bones, he still had a trace of life. His consciousness had long been in a blur, and in this ambiguity, he vaguely heard the voices near him. Initial gold core, realm. With such a realm, he dared to enter the Ancestor's land. It was clearly a female's voice. "Big sister, don't you realize that this little guy's appearance is very similar to the one who came here a few years ago?" Another voice sounded, but it was a man's hoarse voice. "You meant Jian Nantian?" When entering here, Jian Nantian had already reached the peak of the exceptional gold core realm and possessed an amazing sense of sword essence. He also passed the first test directly, which was much better than this guy. This little guy is not even qualified for the first of the 3 tests of the Ancestor's land. If it was not for the completely awakened sword soul in him, I really want to throw him out now and let him fend for himself." The woman said. "Then what do you want to do now?" the man asked. "Serve him with a heart-recovering pill, and then take him to the sword tomb. Shut him in there for 2 years, alive or dead. It rests on himself." The woman said. "Yes," said the man. Later, Jian Wushuang was aware that someone came to him and picked him up. With this pressure and the colliding of his bones, a sudden surge of pain caused him to fall into a coma completely. It had already been 3 days since Jian Wushuang regained consciousness. In a deserted and vast open space, Jian Wushuang casually lay on the ground. He opened his eyes slowly, but the void he saw was a dark one without any light. He slowly lifted his fingers, then he pinched hard on his own cheeks. Immediately, there was a burning pain in his cheeks. "The pain is real. It seems that I am not dead yet." Jian Wushuang smiled brightly. He knew it. The abyss was a death trap for others, but not necessarily for him. When he completed his enhancement in the endless mountain range, he sensed a peculiar summons and came to the abyss. At that time, he was curious about the abyss, and he even guessed that the abyss was the Ancestor's land that his aunt had mentioned before. The dialogue between the 2 people that he heard during his confusion had proven it. Underneath the abyss was indeed the Ancestor's land. The Ancestor's land would exclude all outsiders, but it would not exclude him because he had already awakened the sword soul and owned the triple kill sword. "Well, weird, my body." Jian Wushuang moved his body slightly, but he felt strange. He had exerted all his power into operating the soul-devouring secret skill, and he knew its side effect. Not to mention that this time he used it while seriously injured. It would do more harm to him, and it should take him 10 to 15 days to recover. But now, the injuries he suffered had almost recovered during his 3 days in a coma. Chapter 124, The Sword Tomb. Chapter 124, The Sword Tomb. Is it the effect of that heart-recovering pill? Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He also heard in the vague conversation that the woman said to make him take a heart-recovering pill. After figuring everything out, Jian Wushuang forcefully bore the remaining pain and stood up, examining his surroundings. What's this? After seeing the surroundings, Jian Wushuang was stunned. There were some dilapidated stone tablets standing in a boundless wasteland, but at a glance, numerous thickly dotted sword scars could be seen on the ground. Yes, they were sword scars. They were deliberately left by experts in sword principle. Thickly dotted, thousands of sword scars. Jian Wushuang randomly looked at the sword scar beside him, but with this glance, he was attracted by it immediately. It was incomparably violent and swift, containing a strong sword essence of raging fire, which made Jian Wushuang feel shocked. It's so strong. The man who left this sword scar had a strong and terrifying comprehension in sword essence of raging fire. The owner of this sword scar can definitely pass the 13th level of the Dragon Gate, Jian Wushuang said in a surprise. He also grasped the sword essence of raging fire. So when seeing this sword scar, which contained a vast sword essence of raging fire, he could infer how powerful the expert who left the sword scar was. Jian Wushuang turned to look at another sword scar beside him. Earth, everything contained in one stroke. This sword essence of earth is so awesome. Jian Wushuang was totally stunned again. The sword essence of raging fire and the sword essence of earth contained in two sword scars that were surprisingly strong. But these two sword scars were the most common and inconspicuous ones among the thousands of sword scars in this open space. Jian Wushuang raised his head and subconsciously looked again at the stone tablets standing in front of him. In the wasteland, there were 6 dilapidated stone tablets standing there. Each stone tablet had a large and clear sword scar in the middle, but these 6 sword scars were far more powerful than the others that were on the ground of the wasteland. Jian Wushuang looked at the sword scar on one of the dilapidated stone tablets at once. This Jian Wushuang was shocked by the stone tablet right in front of him. It was quite common and dilapidated. In the middle of the stone tablet was a huge sword scar that was a full 3 meters long. Jian Wushuang looked at the huge sword scar crosscut in the middle of the stone tablet. He could even imagine that a long time ago, someone who had incredible power crosscut from it randomly with his sword drawn from the sheath. The sword scar was left on the stone, but the stone tablet was intact. How exquisite was the power he mastered. Sword essence of earth. This sword scar actually contains everything I can imagine about the sword essence of earth. Mysteriousness, profoundness, vast and boundlessness, even inclusion. Everything is included in it. Sword essence of gale, tear, puncture, and mistiness. Everything is also in it. Sword essence of raging fire. Sword essence of the water drop. Jian Wushuang was totally shocked. In his view, this sword completely contained all the mysteriousness of 4 sword essences. More importantly, the 4 sword essences were perfectly combined. 4 sword essences combined perfectly. Jian Wushuang was totally obsessed. It was so amazing. Such swordsmanship was beyond his imagination. In his obsession, he could not help taking out his triple kill sword and practicing his swordsmanship spontaneously. His thoughts and consciousness became immersed in the sword scar more deeply. Stop it! Jian Wushuang shouted suddenly. Meanwhile, it was not until Jian Wushuang bit his lip and started bleeding that he was able to free himself from the obsession. How dangerous! How dangerous! Jian Wushuang bent his waist and placed his hands on his knees, breathing heavily. Cold sweat was running all over his body. I was nearly bewitched. Jian Wushuang raised his head, looking at the stone tablets right in front of him again. However, he dared not meditate on those sword scars thoughtlessly anymore. Too strong. The few sword scars on the stone tablets were too profound and insolent. He was not qualified to meditate on them at all, with his present comprehension of sword essence. If he meditated forcibly like that, he would be completely bewitched and become lost in it. Finally, he would lose his sword essence as well as his true intention. It was madness. The sword essence on the stone tablets is too esoteric and terrifying. If I meditate now, it is no different than killing myself. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Then, after a while, he recovered completely from the nearly mad situation. After taking a deep breath, he examined the area again. This is the sword tomb? Jian Wushuang was full of astonishment from the bottom of his heart. So amazing! Thousands of sword scars. Each was left by a supreme expert of true sword principle. The apprehension of the sword essence contained in each sword scar was extremely profound. Each sword scar was profound enough for him to become immersed in studying it for a long time. After being startled, Jian Wushuang felt a burst of ecstasy. This sword essence contains the sword essence of the water drop. This contains both sword essences of raging fire and earth. It perfectly combines these two sword essences. This sword scar is arbitrary and fierce. What kind of sword essence does it contain? It does not feel like that of earth, fire, water, or wind. But doesn't the power seem to be stronger? Jian Wushuang stood beside these sword essences. He could not stop himself from taking out his triple kill sword and practicing, sometimes losing himself in it. In Jian Wushuang's view, these sword scars in front of him were even more precious than the 3 treasure places in Dragon Palace. It was indeed the most desirable place for warriors of sword principle to cultivate. However, as Jian Wushuang was completely obsessed in meditating on these sword scars, 2 figures were void walking and hovered above the nearby vast void of the sword tomb. Of these 2 people, one was an absolute beauty with snow-white skin and a cold expression, while the other was a burly man with a simple and honest look. This guy was lucky enough to survive by taking the heart-recovering pill, the absolute beauty coldly said. Lady, although this little guy is at a low realm, his talent is pretty good. He has already completely awakened the sword soul at such young age. The honest and burly man smiled. Well, that's just for the present. If it was the absolute beauty's voice ceased, and she didn't continue speaking. Instead, she turned to the burly man and said, Have you arranged the sword tomb guards already? Yes. Everything is arranged according to your orders, the burly man answered. Well, said the absolute beauty. She nodded her head and looked down. This guy really takes this sword tomb as a valuable opportunity. But he doesn't realize that opportunity appears along with crisis. 1 month later, when the sword guard appears, he will be tortured. I hope he can survive the sword tomb guards. Chapter 125, The Sword Tomb Guard. Chapter 125, The Sword Tomb Guard. In fact, the sword tomb was fraught with jeopardy, but Jian Wushuang had no idea about it. He was immersed in the comprehension of those sword marks, which contained a profusion of mysterious sword essences for him to explore. This move combined the sword essences of raging fire and the water drop perfectly. Though water and fire are originally incompatible, why were these 2 sword essences able to be perfectly combined? This move is so fast and sharp. The sword essence of Gale. Darkness. Endless darkness. What is the sword essence of this sword mark? While probing the sword marks one by one, Jian Wushuang noticed that the sword essences of earth, gale, raging fire, and water drop were the most common essences for the sword marks. However, there were also sword marks containing essences that were different from those four sword essences. Besides earth, gale, raging fire, and water drop, are there other sword essences in the world? Jian Wushuang couldn't help considering this. To observe, meditate, probe, and finally understand it slowly. Under such circumstances, he began to improve his speed of comprehending sword essence at an alarming rate. A month passed in the blink of an eye. In the sword tomb, Jian Wushuang was sitting on the barren land with his legs crossed, and there was a sword scar in front of him. This powerful sword scar perfectly combined the sword essences of gale and raging fire. How do I combine two different sword essences completely? Jian Wushuang was contemplating. After comprehending different kinds of sword essence, it was not only possible to perfectly transition between them, but to also combine them. When two sword essences were combined, a sword stroke could contain both sword essences while complementing each other. The power of the sword would reach an even higher level. Jian Wushuang had comprehended four sword essences and definitely hoped to combine them. But at this moment, boom, the whole sword tomb shook violently. Not far away from the void, there was an absolute beauty with a cold-faced watching this scene. Suddenly, she lifted the corner of her mouth and said, "A month is up." "It's the sword tomb guard," said a sturdy and ingenious man that was standing nearby with a serious complexion. "I don't know if this little guy can defeat the sword tomb guard." "Defeat?" The absolute beauty giggled. "It is the sword tomb guard that I arranged in person. He will be lucky if he is able to survive their attack. When it comes to defeating sword tomb guard, I don't think he has what it takes. Trust me." Obviously, the absolute beauty was very confident in the sword tomb guard. The whole sword tomb was shaking violently. "What's the matter?" Jian Wushuang stood up with a trace of vigilance and began examining the area. Crack! One of the scars on the ground of the sword tomb abruptly cracked. Then that crack began expanding, after which a giant figure slowly climbed out of that crack. This was a nearly 2-meter-tall rock giant. The rock giant's body was made of rocks, but he had the same form as a human in regards to the hands, feet, and head. But there was no nose, mouth, or ears on the head, and only empty dark sockets with 2 red lights where the eyes should have been. "What is this?" Jian Wushuang was shocked. He had never seen a creature entirely made of rock. This rock giant held a giant sword in his hands, which was also made of stone. Although there was no sword edge, the giant sword itself had its own strength. After the rock giant appeared, the 2 red light in the empty eye sockets instantly locked onto Jian Wushuang. The soles of his feet kicked on the ground, and the huge body rushed towards Jian Wushuang. Holding the triple kill sword, Jian Wushuang's expression grew gloomy. "Look, the sword tomb guard has begun to move." The absolute beauty hidden in the void smiled slightly and said, "Pray that the little boy can hold on for at least an hour after the sword tomb guard begins to attack. If he lasts an hour, he will be able to keep his life." Before she could even finish her words, the absolute beauty was suddenly stunned. The nearby sturdy and ingenious man was shocked as well, and his expression became odd. With a cold look in his eyes, Jian Wushuang directly and violently swung the triple kill sword when the sword tomb guard dashed toward him in a frenzy. The sword tomb guard's body was pierced by a gloomy sword light at an amazing speed, and then the bulky sword tomb guard was smashed by a formidable power. The bulky body of the sword tomb guard was scattered into a profusion of rock fragments. It only took an instant for the sword tomb guard to be defeated. "What, The absolute beauty above the void was too shocked to speak. He killed the sword tomb guard in a single move. The sturdy and ingenious man also felt it was unbelievable. It's his strength. The face of absolute beauty was cold. His power is very high. He obviously just reached the gold core realm. However, his strength is at least comparable to the normal warriors in the exceptional gold core realm. My lady, you miscalculated. The sturdy and ingenious man looked at her. How could I know that his power was this strong? The absolute beauty shouted with a low voice. I thought he was just an ordinary warrior in the initial gold core realm. So I arranged for him to compete with a sword tomb guard at the same level as his. But I am surprised. He is stronger than a normal warrior at the same level, so the sword tomb guard was defeated in one move. The sword tomb guard was not suddenly born. It was actually arranged by this absolute beauty. However, the sword tomb guard she arranged was based on the Jian Wushuang's realm. When Jian Wushuang came to the Ancestor's land, he was dying and his aura was at the initial gold core realm. Therefore, the absolute beauty selected a sword tomb guard at the same level. If Jian Wushuang was really a normal warrior in the initial gold core realm, he would not have defeated the sword tomb guard so easily. But what was the result? The truth is that Jian Wushuang is in the initial gold core realm, but his strength is comparable to someone in the exceptional gold core realm, or maybe even someone stronger. Who could expect that? The absolute beauty also did not expect it. Thus, the first sword tomb guard she arranged was quickly defeated by Jian Wushuang's single move. He was lucky, but his luck won't last, said the absolute beauty in a muffled voice. Regard him as a warrior of the exceptional gold core realm and change the sword tomb guard. The sturdy and ingenious man asked, My lady, isn't this little guy really just at the initial gold core realm? It's unfair to treat him the same as someone in the exceptional gold core realm. Oh, unfair? Though he is in the initial gold core realm, his strength is greater than the exceptional gold core realm. It's natural to treat him like someone in the exceptional gold core realm. You should do what I say without hesitation, the absolute beauty said. Okay. The robust man nodded slowly and then rearranged it. Chapter 126. Increase the difficulty. Chapter 126. Increase the difficulty. In the sword tomb, Jian Wushuang was standing beside the rubble. While looking at the rubble formed by the sword tomb guard, his eyebrows slightly crumpled. What the hell was that rock giant I just saw? Is it a test in the sword tomb? Jian Wushuang muttered. But it's too weak if it is a test. The motion is quite big, and the strength is too weak. Jian Wushuang shook his head and said, If the absolute beauty heard this, she would certainly be embarrassed. The sword tomb guard was personally arranged by her, and she was pretty confident that Jian Wushuang would suffer miserably. Not only that, she thought he would have trouble just surviving. However, what was Jian Wushuang's comment about it? Too weak. Jian Wushuang did not know that this sword tomb guard was arranged for him according to his realm. They thought he just stepped into the initial gold core realm. So they arranged a weak sword tomb guard. But next time, they would arrange for a stronger one, which would not be so easy to deal with. The sword tomb guard that suddenly appeared had astonished Jian Wushuang, but he did not care about it too much. He spent the following time there alone, quietly comprehending those sword scars. A month elapsed in a flash. WOM, BOM, BOM. The whole sword tomb shook violently again. With the previous experience in mind, Jian Wushuang was calm this time. Very soon, a huge sword tomb guard appeared in front of him. It has only been a month since the last time the sword tomb shook. That must mean a rock giant will appear in the sword tomb every month. Jian Wushuang muttered. How much stronger is this one compared to the last one? He muttered. If one rock giant appears every month, then their strengths would surely increase. It would be pointless if their strength keeps same, Jian Wushuang thought. Shortly after that, Jian Wushuang started fighting with this rock giant. A sword shadow directly flew toward the rock giant. However, the rock giant fiercely raised his hand and slammed it toward the air, instantly splitting the air. Jian Wushuang was pushed back by this sudden burst of strength. Shit! There was a slight change on Jian Wushuang's face. As soon as the rock giant displayed his first movement, Jian Wushuang immediately realized that this rock giant was much stronger than the one that he easily defeated last month. This one had a much higher level of power. The one that appeared last month could easily be destroyed with just a single wave of Jian Wushuang's sword. But this one actually knocked Jian Wushuang backward. Interesting, Jian Wushuang said. He smiled, and in the following moment, he released his full power and threw himself into the fight with the rock giant. The atmosphere was violent as Jian Wushuang thoroughly displayed his swordsmanship. In the void, nearby, the absolute beauty and a strong man were watching calmly. I don't believe he will defeat this sword tomb guard as easily as the one I arranged before, the absolute beauty said in a cold voice. But my lady, it's obvious that this one is not Jian Wushuang's opponent either, the strong man said in a deep voice. The absolute beauty watched with a stern expression. She could also tell that even though Jian Wushuang did not instantly defeat the rock giant, he was obviously more powerful. His comprehension of sword essence has improved a lot, the absolute beauty said, and sighed. 2 months ago, when Jian Wushuang was meditating on the sword scars in the sword tomb, she could tell his level in sword essence. Now, 2 months passed, and his comprehension of the sword essences had obviously reached a whole new level. In fact, only Jian Wushuang knew that his comprehension in sword essence had not just improved a little, it had improved significantly. In the past 2 months, Jian Wushuang had been studying and comprehending essences contained in the sword scars. His understanding of sword essence had been increasing at an amazing speed, which was far faster than when he was cultivating an outside world or in Dragon Palace. After all, neither the outside world nor Dragon Palace was like Sword Tomb, which had thousands of sword scars left behind by experts of sword principle. In 2 months, his progress was tremendous. Shoo! A sword shadow leaped out above the rock giant's sword. Then Jian Wushuang's sword struck like a viper and directly stabbed into the rock giant's stout arm, causing debris to drop down from its arm. Then, with a simple strike from Jian Wushuang, the rock giant fell down. This rock giant's comprehension of the sword essence is average, but his strength and speed are terrible. However, he is much stronger than the average gold core warrior. Just speaking on overall strength, he should be stronger than Xiao Meng, Jian Wushuang muttered. Xiao Meng, a person who fought with Jian Wushuang for a long time. However, the overall strength of the rock giant in front of him was not weaker than Xiao Meng. If it was 2 months ago, Jian Wushuang would have struggled against this rock giant, but now, swoosh, a sword light flashed at an amazing speed, easily passing by the rock giant's sword. With a quick slash, the rock giant's whole arm crumbled. Another sword slash followed, falling directly onto the giant's head. Although the rock giant's head was very hard, it could not resist this sword, which contained sword essence of earth. All of a sudden, the whole head shattered, and he crumbled into a pile of rubble. In the void nearby, seeing the sword tomb guard defeated easily by Jian Wushuang again, the absolute beauty immediately looked cold. He is very talented. In 2 months, he had such great progress. The absolute beauty said in a cold voice. His progress really is substantial. The strong man nodded. and said, "Second brother, make a few adjustments to the sword tomb guards I arranged, and make it more difficult for him," said the absolute beauty. "Increase the difficulty." The strong man was astonished and asked, "My lady, this little guy only has an initial gold core. No matter what, it's already unfair that we are treating him like someone in the exceptional gold core realm. It's too unfair if we increase the difficulty again." "Not too much at all. Just do as I say," said the absolute beauty. The strong man pondered for a while, but he immediately nodded helplessly. In the Ancestor's land, this absolute beauty was the eldest sister. She had the last word for everything. For the test in the sword tomb, the difficulty had been increased by a lot. However, Jian Wushuang did not notice. He did not think about it too much after he defeated the second rock giant. After that, he continued to study those sword scars. Those sword scars had helped him immensely. His comprehension of sword essence was rising at an amazing speed. Chapter 127, Ceasing. Chapter 127, Ceasing. During the time Jian Wushuang stayed in the sword tomb of the Ancestor's land, the Tianzong dynasty was in complete chaos, bathed in a bloody rain and filled with a murderous wind. Dragon Palace's anger was dreadful, and the revenge that Dragon Palace took on Blood Feather Tower was swift and violent. Blood Feather Tower suffered severe damage under the maniacal attacks from Dragon Palace in merely 2 months. Many hidden strongholds were razed to the ground, and a great number of assassins were killed by the experts from Dragon Palace. At the same time, other powerful and hidden forces were also crazily attacking Blood Feather Tower. These 2 months were the most miserable in all of Blood Feather Tower's history. The assassins of Blood Feather Tower tried their best to hide, not even daring to show themselves, and especially not carrying out any missions. Tottering and falling Blood Feather Tower, one of the 3 hegemonies of Tianzong dynasty, was on the verge of breaking down. However, just as everyone thought Blood Feather Tower was fade away like smoke and become history, suddenly the people seeking revenge against Blood Feather Tower quieted down in just 1 day. Yes, they all stopped for an unknown reason. Dragon Palace stopped attacking. Those powerful hidden forces aiming at Blood Feather Tower also stopped. Except for a few forces that wanted to take advantage of the chaos to claim vengeance, the strongest forces, the forces Blood Feather Tower feared the most, all ceased fire. They stopped on almost the same day. And soon after, Blood Feather Tower swiftly rallied its power. So unexpected. All of this happened so quickly, startling all the other forces and experts in Tianzong dynasty. The abrupt halting of the crazy vengeance toward Blood Feather Tower was quite baffling to everyone. In Dragon Palace, many top-notch experts had returned. In a palace, the 2 palace masters and several temple masters gathered around. Palace Master White drank alone with a bottle of wine in her hand, wearing an extremely cold expression. "Asshole! I won't accept it." After drinking a sip of wine, Palace Master White roared in a low voice, while Palace Master Black and the other temple masters remained silent. It's obvious that it won't take long to eliminate Blood Feather Tower entirely. Why did that person order us to stop attacking at this exact moment? What on earth is he thinking? Palace Master White was still complaining. "Enough, White, you should stop complaining. Since the temple master gave the order in person, he must have his reasons. We only need to obey it," Palace Master Black said with a sigh. "Obey it?" Palace Master White snorted, feeling extremely unreconciled, but also helpless. The temple master referred to the temple master of Golden Dragon Palace. Although being the core of Golden Dragon Palace, Dragon Palace was still subordinated to it, and the temple master of Golden Dragon Palace was the monarch of Tianzong dynasty. The monarch personally gave the order, so those experts in Dragon Palace dared not disobey. Beside a stone table in a manor, Wang Yuan was holding a letter in his hand and reading it with icy cold eyes. The more he read, the stiffer his expression became. After finishing, Wang Yuan was so furious that he slammed the letter on the table. Bastard, just a blood feather tower. How come it can't be wiped out? Wang Yuan's anger welled up in his body. Next to him, Danjiu stood respectfully in a purple robe. Young lord, the sect master definitely has his own considerations by asking you to stop attacking Bloodfeather Tower. So, before Danjiu finished his words, he noticed the cold stare from Wang Yuan. Danjiu felt as if his heart missed a beat, and he stopped talking immediately. Wang Yuan remained silent for a long time. He took a deep breath, lowered his voice, and said, "Since my father gave this order, I have to follow his words and stop chasing Bloodfeather Tower. But Lin Yun, the man who attacked Third Brother and forced him to jump into the abyss, must die. As long as you don't aim at the entire Bloodfeather Tower, only one purple-masked assassin should not be a problem." Danjiu nodded. "All right then, let's deal with Lin Yun. You'd better capture him alive," Wang Yuan said with a cold snort. "Yes." Danjiu nodded and left immediately. "Third brother." Wang Yuan stood in the manor, looking up at the sky, eyes flashing, and yelled, "You can rest assured. Your big brother will avenge you." At the same time, in a secret chamber, several figures in bloody robes stood respectfully in front of Su Ro. "Master really ordered me to stop attacking Blood Feather Tower." Su Ro's face was veiled with a hint of chill, but she also felt puzzled. Why would a little Blood Feather Tower cause my master to back down? "Since master ordered it, I'll let it go." Su Ro sighed, but a trace of grief emerged in her eyes. Poor third brother. Tianzong dynasty soon calmed down again. As time went by, Jian Wushuang slowly faded from the memories of all the forces and experts in the sword tomb of the ancestors' land. It had been a year and 3 months since Jian Wushuang came to the sword tomb. During that time, he had been obsessed with meditating on these sword scars, trying to comprehend their secrets. Meanwhile, 15 sword tomb guards had appeared during this time, 1 guard per month. Among the 15 sword guards, the first one was rather weak, but starting with the second one, the strength of the sword tomb guards was generally strong, and each one was stronger than the previous one. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang's comprehension in sword essence increased while meditating on the sword scars, so he was able to defeat all the sword tomb guards in succession. If he failed to make progress for even 1 month, he would have been killed by the sword tomb guard that appeared that month. Right now, in the open space of the sword tomb, Jian Wushuang was practicing swordsmanship with his eyes closed. Streaks of sword shadows thrust out ceaselessly. Shapeless wind, boundless howling, swiftest fire, wildest rage. Wind howls on fire, and fire rages by wind. Sword essence of gale. Sword essence of raging fire. Jian Wushuang murmured. His sword moves were getting faster and faster. Suddenly, a dazzling sword strike thrust out, directly and explosively piercing the void, tearing up everything in its path. Shwa! The sword edge stabbed in the void, and a flame wave spread out like a hurricane. The sword essences of gale and raging fire, 2 totally different sword essences, were combined in this one sword move. At the same time, Jian Wushuang's eyes opened, radiating an unprecedented light. The sword essences of gale and raging fire have been combined together. It's done. Chapter 128, 2 years. Chapter 128, 2 years. At the moment, When Jian Wushuang combined the sword essences of raging fire and gale, the robust man who had been silently watching from the void above the sword tomb immediately smiled and said it only took him 1 year and 3 months to combine 2 sword essences. He is lucky, the absolute beauty coldly groaned. After combining them, the sword moves Jian Wushuang executed were even more terrifying than before. Since his strength had increased again, his fight with the sword tomb guards became easier. Winter came again. The outside world was filled with drifting snowflakes, but in the Ancestor's land beneath the abyss, it was still dark. It had been 2 years since Jian Wushuang came to the sword tomb. "It's been 2 years. Let the boy leave," said the absolute beauty. "In addition, give him this sword skill. This is selfless sword technique." The robust man had a puzzled expression. "In the past 2 years, I have constantly increased the difficulty of the sword tomb guards. It was too harsh. This sword skill is a kind of compensation for him." After finishing her words, the absolute beauty turned around and disappeared into the void. The robust man smiled and immediately dropped down. Down below, Jian Wushuang had just defeated the 24th sword tomb guard since entering the sword tomb. Not enough. Whether it's the sword essence of earth or water drop, it is not enough. Jian Wushuang frowned slowly. 9 months ago, he combined the sword essences of gale and raging fire to form the fiery wind sword essence. After combining them successfully, he naturally wanted to combine a 3rd sword essence. However, the combination of 3 sword essences was more difficult than 2 sword essences. After 9 months of hard work, the sword essences of earth and water drop were close to combining with the fiery wind sword essence. But he was unsuccessful. "It's been 2 years. Jian Wushuang sighed in silence, looking at the numerous sword scars around him. In these 2 years, he studied many of the sword scars, but it was still only a small section of the whole sword tomb. He still could not comprehend the most exceptional sword scars, like the sword scars engraved on the 6 stone tablets. Even now, the sword tomb was still filled with endless opportunities. However, when he came to the sword tomb, he heard the conversation while he was barely conscious, so he knew he could only stay in the sword tomb for 2 years. Now that 2 years was up, he should be leaving if there were no accidents. Sure enough, just when the idea of leaving occurred to him, he saw a robust man descend and appear in front of him. Jian Wushuang had a strange feeling as he stared at this man. There was a sense of horror that made his heart tremble while looking at this man, even though he was standing here like a normal person with no aura. The most important point was that no life could be felt from the robust man. He didn't seem human, more like a puppet. 2 years have passed. Follow me. The robust man's expression was cold. Jian Wushuang nodded. Although he was extremely intrigued by the sword tomb, he had to leave. "Sir, I want to ask some questions about the Ancestor's land." On the way, Jian Wushuang also wanted to ask something. After all, he was still very confused and filled with countless questions, but he was rebuked by the robust man when he opened his mouth. "Shut up. Based on your current strength, you are not qualified to ask anything about the Ancestor's land. You must pass a test after reaching the Yin-Yang Void Realm if you want to know." Jian Wushuang was startled and did not dare to ask again. Here it is. Not long after, the robust man and Jian Wushuang came to an empty area. There were many mysterious cracks on the surface of this empty area. As the man put a special gem into the mysterious crack immediately burst with dazzling light. The space in front of Jian Wushuang split, and a huge crack which could accommodate a person appeared. "What is this?" Jian Wushuang stared at the huge rift in shock. He had seen plenty of huge rifts on the ground, and with his current strength, His sword strikes could easily leave a deep crack in the ground. However, this rift in front of him was not on the ground, but in the void. It's a wormhole that can connect two different spaces. The robust man said, "Wormhole, connect two different spaces. There is another space." Jian Wushuang could not help but ask, "You will know when you get there." The robust man did not answer directly. "Since you have come to the Ancestor's land, we can't let you go home empty-handed. Now this sword skill is yours. Though it is only the first half of the volume, it will be useful." Then the robust man gave Jian Wushuang the sword skill. Jian Wushuang took it and said, "Selfless sword technique. Okay, now you have to leave." After saying this, the robust man directly grabbed Jian Wushuang by the collar and threw him straight into the rift. Jian Wushuang was thrown into the crack without resistance and disappeared. In an extremely dark, hidden cave. The cave was quite old. No one had visited it in a long time, so the wall was covered with moss. On the empty ground at the center of the cave, many mysterious cracks suddenly radiated a dazzling light. The void above the mysterious cracks was ripped apart, leaving a streak in the huge rift. Then a figure dashed out. Bang! Jian Wushuang's body slammed into one of the stone walls, making the walls shake so much that gravel fell from them. That really hurt. Jian Wushuang groaned because of the pain. After a while, he pulled himself together and began to look around. A cave. Jian Wushuang looked at his surroundings. Where is this? Am I still in the endless mountain range? Jian Wushuang immediately stumbled along the cave path toward the exit. The exit of this cave was blocked by a pile of stones. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang brandished his sword and directly cleaved a path through those stones. Then he stepped outside of the cave. This is when Jian Wushuang walked out of the cave and saw the vibrant primordial forest blanketed in the floating black fog. His look immediately became bizarre. The dark forest. It should be the dark forest. 3 years ago, the first time he was hunted by Blood Feather Tower. When he escaped from the Sword Marquis Mansion in order to evade Blood Feather Tower, Sima Bu, and he eventually decided to cross the dark forest. Jian Wushuang was familiar with this area because he had stayed here for 4 months. But what surprised him was that the other end of the wormhole was in the dark forest. The dark forest was adjacent to Tianyan province and next to Bahui Commandery. Chapter 129, back to Tianyan province. Chapter 129, back to Tianyan province. It has been 3 years since I left Sword Marquis Mansion. I should go back. Making up his mind, Jian Wushuang went straight toward Tianyan province. On the way, he also began to delve into the selfless sword technique. The selfless sword technique, the robust man, gave him only had the first half of the volume. It had a total of 6 sword skills. Jian Wushuang was attracted to this volume after reading its introduction. The selfless sword technique was different from all other sword skills Jian Wushuang had ever studied, like formless sword arts, formless sword wave, sword skill of blood and fire, and reincarnation sword skill. All those sword skills were only for one sword essence. The formless sword arts target the sword essence of Gale, while the formless sword wave target the sword essence of Earth. But the selfless sword technique target 4 sword essences, not just one. No matter which sword essence you comprehended, you could study and delve into the selfless sword technique. Furthermore, the selfless sword technique was even more suitable for warriors who had combined different sword essences. The power of the 6 sword skills depended on the comprehension level of sword essence. Jian Wushuang had now perfectly combined the sword essences of Gale and Raging Fire. What he needed was a sword skill which could execute 2 sword essences at the same time. The selfless sword technique was more or less suitable. Jian Wushuang immediately began to delve into the first move of the selfless sword technique. The first move was called idealistic form. 2 days later, on his way through the dark forest, Jian Wushuang took out his triple kill sword. Idealism, solipsism. Jian Wushuang murmured in a deep thought. The triple kill sword flew out like a streak of light and pounded on a strong tree. The sword shadow, that combined both sword essences of gale and raging fire, exploded. Bang! The trunk of the entire tree was directly pierced, and a circular hole with a diameter of more than 20 centimeters appeared. The center of the entire tree was completely hollowed out. Seeing this scene, Jian Wushuang's eyes lightened. This is idealistic form. Its power is very strong. Jian Wushuang thought, I only combined 2 sword essences, forming the fiery wind sword essence. Its power would be even more terrifying if I could combine 3 or 4 sword essences. Jian Wushuang was also very excited. The experience in the Ancestor's land benefited him a lot. The first was his cultivation. Although he focused his mind and body on delving into sword essences over those 2 years, leaving little time for cultivation, his spiritual power still increased faster than ordinary warriors simply because of the heavenly creation skill. Now, he had already broken through from the initial gold core and reached the profound gold core realm. Actually, his supreme golden core was 100 times stronger than an expert at the same level. When he was in the initial gold core realm, the strength he could release was stronger than normal warriors in the exceptional gold core realm. Now, after reaching the profound gold core realm, his strength would be matchless among the warriors in the gold core realm when he released his full power. And his progress in sword essence was even greater. His comprehension in all 4 sword essences had advanced by leaps and bounds. The sword essences of gale and raging fire had even been combined perfectly. Now, he had also had the selfless sword technique. His strength as a whole was much stronger than it was 2 years ago. A few days later, Jian Wushuang walked out of the dark forest, and what appeared in front of him was the Tianyan province that he was quite familiar with. Tianyan province. Bahui Commandery. I am back. It was still bustling in the Bahui Commandery. While wearing a black robe and a bamboo hat, Jian Wushuang appeared in a restaurant. Near the window on the 2nd floor of the restaurant, having ordered a pot of wine, he drank alone with his eyes focused on the huge mansion outside of the window. It was also bustling in the mansion, and Jian Wushuang could even see some disciples of the Marquis's mansion practicing sword skills on the drill ground. It is the same as before, Jian Wushuang secretly thought. Sword Marquis mansion. His roots. He lived there for a full 16 years. 3 years ago, Sword Marquis mansion was greatly troubled because of me, for elders also died because of me. I don't even know the current state of the Sword Pavilion. Jian Wushuang was anxious. In the Sword Pavilion, his father had worked hard for a long time. When he was young, his aim was to inherit the position of Sword Pavilion Master. Who could have expected that an incident would occur when he was taking pains to accomplish his goal? After that incident, he, the future Sword Pavilion Master, had to leave the Tianyan province, and the 4 great elders of the Sword Pavilion were all killed. It can be said that the backbone of the Sword Pavilion was gone overnight. Therefore, Jian Wushuang was very anxious about the current state of the Sword Pavilion. But at this moment, rat-a-tat, rat-a-tat, heavy footsteps were heard from the outside streets, and the whole street shook slightly. People in the middle of the street scattered. Jian Wushuang looked through the window to the source of the footsteps. What he saw were 3 large wildebeests slowly coming from the end of the street. Wildebeests were generally a spirit beast in the spiritual sea realm. Their strength was normal, but they were gentle and relatively easy to tame, and their speed was amazingly fast. Therefore, some big forces would tame a few wildebeests for riding. On the 3 wildebeests, there were 3 figures, 2 men and a woman. Jian Wushuang could not help but tilt his lips when he saw the woman on the middle wildebeest. Jian Menger. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. This was beyond his expectations. The first disciple of the Marquis's mansion he met after coming back was Jian Menger, who had tangled with him before. Profound gold core realm? Not bad. Jian Wushuang was smiling. He could see that the aura of spiritual power from Jian Menger had reached the profound gold core realm. It must be noted that Jian Menger's age was the same as his. He was only 19 years old this year. A 19-year-old warrior at the profound gold core realm was already very marvelous. When she was defeated by me 3 years ago, she went to the Tianyan sword sect to practice with her great master. According to speculation, within 3 years, she was not allowed to leave the Tianyan sword sect. She also came back today? What a coincidence! Jian Wushuang's expression became odd. Under his watch, Jian Menger and the other 2 people on the wildebeests entered Sword Marquis Mansion. At the same time, Jian Wushuang heard the comments from the people around him. Is the girl on the wildebeest Jian Menger the exceptional genius from Sword Marquis Mansion? Yes, it's her. It is said that she went to the Tianyan sword sect to practice after being defeated by Jian Wushuang 3 years ago. She had never shown up since then. Now she finally returns after 3 years. It's normal to come back. After all, the situation Sword Marquis Mansion is terrible. If she doesn't come back, Sword Marquis Mansion will disappear. Several warriors were talking about it. Although their voice was lowered, Jian Wushuang could still clearly hear what they said. Sword Marquis Mansion will disappear if Jian Menger didn't return. Jian Wushuang slightly narrowed his eyes, and in his dark pupil as a streak of cold light flashed. Chapter 130, Inside the Celestial Immortal Residence. Chapter 130, Inside the Celestial Immortal Residence. The 3 warriors were still talking, and Jian Wushuang was listening carefully. Hey, I heard that Sword Marquis Mansion had already sent out invitations to the 3 chiefs of the Fierce Beast Gang to meet at Tianyan tomorrow. I am afraid the purpose of the meeting is to fight and see who is stronger. One of them has been a leader in Bahui Commandery for many years, while the other one, the Fierce Beast Gang, led by the 3 Sioux brothers, has just appeared recently. This will be an interesting fight. I'm afraid that Sword Marquis Mansion will be in danger this time. Although the Fierce Beast Gang appeared not long ago, the 3 Sioux brothers are well-known experts in Tianyan province, especially the eldest brother, Su Long, who is an expert on the earthly dragon list. There is no one who can compete with him in the entire Sword Marquis Mansion. That's right. Sword Marquis Mansion is also aware of the pressure, so they urgently requested for Jian Menger to come back. After all, she is a core disciple in Tianyuan sword sect, and her power is quite impressive as well. Everything will be settled tomorrow. The 3 men talked casually, ignoring the people around them. After hearing what they said, Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. The 3 Sioux brothers? Su Long? Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. He knew that Su Long ranked 91st on the earthly dragon list, which was even a few places higher than Su Lai. If it was in 2 years ago, Su Long's strength was enough for Jian Wushuang to pay a little attention to him. But now, Jian Wushuang could completely ignore him. The Fierce Beast Gang will fight against Sword Marquis Mansion to see who is stronger tomorrow? Interesting. Jian Wushuang smiled, and then continued to drink. The next day, inside the celestial immortal residence, the news that Sword Marquis Mansion would meet the fierce beast gang at Celestial Immortal Residence today had already spread throughout the entire Bahui Commandery, so the original lively Celestial Immortal Residence was empty and lonely today. Everyone knew that there might be a fierce battle at Celestial Immortal Residence today. Naturally, ordinary warriors didn't want to get involved. Of course, there was one exception. It was a black-robed man with a bamboo hat and a long sword. He had been drinking alone in the corner of the second floor of the Celestial Immortal Residence since early morning. The waiters there came to persuade him to leave, but he didn't say a word and remained sitting there. At noon, footsteps could be heard from the stairs, followed by a large group of people. Those people came from Sword Marquis Mansion, and Jian Wushuang knew some of them. The leader of them was Jian Xinhong, who was the Sword Marquis Mansion master. Jian Xinhong's cultivation exuded the aura of the exceptional gold core realm. In regards to spiritual power, he was obviously the strongest present. And next to Jian Xinhong, there were 3 others in the primordial gold core realm. It was Jian Meng'er and the 2 core disciples of Tianyan sword sect. It should be a while before the 3 Su brothers arrive, so let's sit down first, said Jian Xinhong. Then he, Jian Meng'er, and 2 other disciples of the Tianyuan sword sect sat down at the table. The other warriors of Sword Marquis Mansion stood next to them. Meng'er, today's meeting is up to you 3, said Jian Xinhong, while frowning, full of worries. Our Sword Marquis Mansion never thought to throw the 3 Su brothers out of Bahui Commandery. Instead, we were willing to make concessions and give them Bahui Commandery's leadership. We can even give them some other benefits, as long as they stop attacking. Jian Xinhong spoke in a hopeless manner. Before, Sword Marquis Mansion was indeed the overlord of Bahui Commandery. But since the Fierce Beast Gang appeared, they had suffered suppression from the Fierce Beast Gang in all aspects, not even having the strength to fight back. They had no choice since strength determined everything. The 3 leaders of the Fierce Beast Gang, which were the 3 Su brothers, all possessed excellent strength. The eldest brother, Su Long, was even on the earthly dragon list. An expert like him was not someone that Sword Marquis Mansion could compete against. Mansion Master, don't worry. As long as we 3 are here, Su Long won't dare to go too far. After all, behind us is the Tianyuan sword sect. He should at least care about the reputation of Tianyuan sword sect. What's more, even if it really comes down to a battle, the 2 of us and Meng'er could defeat Su Long together, said the purple-haired disciple with a laugh. Experts on the earthly dragon list are indeed very powerful, but his strength is also limited. Moreover, Su Long is only ranked 91st, and his strength should only be a little stronger than the average warrior in the exceptional gold core realm. Both Mengyu and I are also in the exceptional gold core realm. Together, with Menger, whose strength is comparable to the exceptional gold core realm, we can easily deal with Su Long, said the other disciple of Tianyuan sword sect. These 2 disciples of the Tianyuan sword sect were named Mengyu and Zhuyu. Both of them were in the exceptional gold core realm, and they were pretty confident in their strength. Don't be too confident. The experts on the earthly dragon list are not simple. Jian Xinhong shook his head and said he had personally faced Su Long, but had to run away after just 3 moves. He knew clearly that there was a huge gap between the experts of the earthly dragon list and the ordinary warriors of the exceptional gold core realm. Every expert on the earthly dragon list was able to defeat a group of warriors in the exceptional gold core realm alone. This was a fact. Unfortunately, Senior Brother Ling Feng went out to travel. Otherwise, with him here, Su Long would not dare to be so unbridled, Jian Meng'er said in a low voice. Ling Feng was the strongest among the young generation of the Tianyuan sword sect. He was the strongest genius that Jian Menger had ever met. He was only 23 years old, but he had already ranked 41st on the Earthly Dragon list. He was the only person that was listed on the Earthly Dragon list in the entire Tianyuan sword sect. Ling Feng had a good relationship with her, and they already shared some special feelings. Menger, the three Su brothers are not qualified to compete with senior brother Ling Feng. Besides, we three can defeat him easily, Mengyu and Zhuyu said without taking it seriously. Menger, I heard that you were defeated by a person in Sword Marquis Mansion 3 years ago. Where is that person? Now, that Sword Marquis Mansion is in danger. Why is he not here? Mengyu asked suddenly. Jian Wushuang. Jian Menger thought, with a slight cold expression on her face. The words of Jian Wushuang had left a scar in her heart, and, even after 3 years, it was still there. She would never forget that 3 years ago, the useless person that she looked down upon had surpassed her in only 2 months, causing her to trip at the last step of her plan. During these 3 years, she did her best to cultivate and improve her strength while in the Tianyuan sword sect. She put in more effort than ordinary people. The most important reason for her to do so was that she wanted to compete with Jian Wushuang again. She wanted to erase the humiliation she suffered 3 years ago and extricate herself from the nightmare brought on by Jian Wushuang. She thought she could meet Jian Wushuang and fight with him again when she returned to Sword Marquis Mansion this time. However, she did not expect that when she returned, she would hear that Jian Wushuang had left Sword Marquis Mansion 3 years ago, and no one knew where he was. Chapter 131, 3 Su Brothers. Chapter 131, 3 Su Brothers. He only defeated you 3 years ago by luck. In the past 3 years, you have reached an excellent cultivation level. With plenty of treasures to assist you, your strength has been improving day by day, which is not something ordinary people can achieve. I do not believe that person who defeated you 3 years ago is qualified to be your opponent now. Mengyu sneered and said, Maybe. Jian Menger nodded slightly. She somewhat agreed. Indeed, she was the core disciple of the Tianyuan sword sect. In the past 3 years, she had received the best resources for cultivation, and a large number of experts personally instructed her, which helped her strength improved greatly. But for Jian Wushuang, he was alone, no instructions from experts, and no cultivation resources. How much improvement could he have made in the past 3 years? Maybe he has not even achieved the Gold Core realm yet. How stupid of me to treat him as my opponent, letting him be a stumbling block in my heart for the past 3 years, Jian Menger thought, and smiled indifferently. Those 2 disciples of the Tianyuan sword sect continued talking with Jian Menger. They did not know that what they said was clearly heard by the black-robed swordsman, who was wearing a bamboo hat and sitting in the corner. The black-robed swordsman was listening without saying anything, just drinking alone. However, his face, which was hidden under the bamboo hat, had a weird smile. Ding! A low and powerful sound of footsteps was heard from the stairs again. Suddenly, the people in the Sword Marquis Mansion all looked serious. A bunch of people walked up, with 3 walking at the front. Those 3 leaders were very strong, and they looked a little bit like each other. The aura they released was very tyrannical, especially the large dark man in the middle. His aura was as violent as an ancient fierce beast. This person was Su Long. Jian Menger, Mengyu, and Zhuyu, all of them looked grim. Although they spoke in an easy and relaxed way, they still felt a little bit scared when they faced Su Long. They could even sense who was stronger just from the aura he released. Jian Xinhong, what did you gather us 3 here for? Just be straight. Su Long seemed unconcerned and sat on a chair. His 2 brothers and other beastly people were standing beside him. Sulong, the reason I invited you to meet here today is to discuss the armistice between Sword Marquis Mansion and the Fierce Beast Gang. Jian Xinhong said seriously, in the past 1 month, there were several fights between us, no matter publicly or secretly, both brought us a big loss. Without waiting for Jian Xinhong to finish, Sulong interrupted him and said, "You are wrong. You are the one suffering a big loss, not us. After the battles, my Fierce Beast Gang did indeed lose a lot of people, but we also gained more reputation. More and more people joined to help accomplish our goal. Many of them had great hatred towards your Sword Marquis Mansion. So our overall strength is not getting weaker. Instead, we are getting stronger. So, if you just want to talk nonsense with me, then we do not need to talk anymore." Jian Xinhong looked a little bit awkward. He knew what Sulong said was pretty true, and that was the key reason that he did not dare to continue fighting with the Fierce Beast Gang. If they keep fighting with them, they would just make the Sword Marquis Mansion more and more miserable. In the end, they might be destroyed by the Fierce Beast Gang. "Sulong, my Sword Marquis Mansion is willing to make some concessions," Jian Xinhong seriously said. "From today on, we will try our best to restrain our disciples from conflicting with your people. At the same time, the title of Bahui Commandery Hegemon is yours. Besides that, we will give you 10% of our properties. What do you think?" "Oh." Sulong looked a little bit excited. "That is something worth talking about. However, 10% is too little." "10% is a lot," Jian Xinhong said in a low voice. "Mr. Sulong." Jian Menger suddenly stood up and said, "My name is Jian Menger, a disciple of Tianyuan Sword Sect. My great master is the elder of Tianyuan Sword Sect, Shui Hanxin. For the sake of her, please don't be so hard on our Sword Marquis Mansion." Jian Menger sounded very polite, but the truth was that she was giving Sulong pressure using the Tianyuan Sword Sect and her great master, Shui Hanxin. Tianyuan Sword Sect. Sulong glanced at Jian Menger and said with a slight smile, "I heard a long time ago that a girl from Sword Marquis Mansion became a core disciple of the Tianyuan Sword Sect. So you are that girl, but you are looking down on me. Tianyuan Sword Sect is indeed very powerful, and it's not someone I dare to provoke. However, you are just a core disciple. You can't represent the Tianyuan Sword Sect. In regards to your great master, Shui Hanxin, in the entire Tianyuan Sword Sect, except those old Yin-Yang Void Realms, Ling Feng is the only person who is qualified to be my opponent. Shui Hanxin is nothing to me." After saying this, Sulong looked towards Jian Xinhong again and continued, "Jian Xinhong, don't think getting several disciples from the Tianyuan Sword Sect can scare me. Let me tell you the truth. I want 90% of your properties. No negotiation. Otherwise, Sword Marquis Mansion will become history." 90%. Jian Xinhong looked at him coldly. Jian Menger also had a cold expression. "You are looking to die." Meng Yu and Zhu Yu beside them were super angry. Menger, stop talking to him. Let's directly fight with him. He needs a lesson from the disciples of Tianyuan Sword Sect, Meng Yu cried with a low voice. "Exactly. He isn't even ranked 90th on the Earthly Dragon list. We don't need to be afraid of him." Zhu Yu also cried out angrily. Jian Menger did not say anything. However, the light purple long sword appearing in her hands had shown her attitude. "Ha! You disciples of Tianyuan Sword Sect really do not understand the situation clearly." Seeing their actions, Sulong laughed. Then he glanced at a burly man next to him. "Third brother, you deal with those 3 young guys. After all, they are core disciples of Tianyuan Sword Sect. We can't kill them, but we can teach them a lesson," Sulong said. "Don't worry, big brother. I can handle it." said Su Bao, the third of the three Su brothers. He smiled, then walked forward with heavy steps. You three, fight with me together, Su Bao said coldly. You are looking to die. Meng Yu and Zhu Yu were super angry. As disciples of Tianyuan's sword sect, they were quite proud of themselves. And since they entered this restaurant, Su Long was their only opponent. In regards to Su Long's two brothers, they were nothing to them. So when they heard what Su Long said, they were infuriated. Soon after, Zhu Yu waved his sword, releasing his spiritual power, and stabbed towards Su Bao. Chapter 132. You bothered me. Chapter 132. You bothered me. Zhu Yu took action before Jian Menger, and Meng Yu were still standing there. An awe-inspiring spirit fiercely burst out. Apparently, what Zhu Yu showed was the boundless heaven sword art, one of the 4 sword arts of the Tianyuan sword sect. With a raging chop, his long sword displayed a tremendous power. Haha, that's a joke. Su Bao grinned and then clenched his big hand, generating a terrifying spiritual power in his palm. In the next moment, a straightforward fist struck out. It seemed like a giant elephant was dashing toward them. The fist struck the long sword, making the sword and its blade bend. Then, Su Bao's powerful fist continued moving towards Zhu Yu. What? Zhu Yu was shocked. He did not expect that the move he earnestly studied would be brushed aside so easily. The fist struck Zhu Yu. Puff! A large mouthful of blood immediately ejected from Zhu Yu's mouth as his body was launched backward. Zhu Yu! Meng Yu was shocked. Schwat, a straightforward sword shadow, instantly pierced towards Su Bao's throat cunningly. Good. With a brilliant smile, Su Bao took a large step and clenched his right fist. A frightening power ran through his burly arm, spurting out. An overwhelming fist with a stronger power. Bang! The same scene happened again. A great amount of blood ejected from Meng Yu's mouth, and in the process of his retreat, he bumped the bench beside him. Due to the horrible impact, one of the benches was thrown by the incredible force. Coincidentally, the direction in which this bench was thrown was precisely where the black-robed swordsman Saturday. Detecting the bench that was flying towards him, the black-robed swordsman immediately waved his hand, radiating enough spiritual power to break it into pieces. I just want to drink quietly, but you are bothering me. The cold voice of the black-robed swordsman abruptly sounded in the inn. Everyone present quickly looked toward black-robed swordsman while frowning. The news that Sword Marquis Mansion would compete with the Fierce Beast Gang in Celestial Immortal residence today had spread long ago. Thus, no guests would come to Celestial Immortal residence today. But the black-robed swordsman had stayed here all the day. When the 2 groups of people arrived there just now, they also noticed the black-robed swordsman, but they didn't care about him. But now, this guy, Jian Menger slightly frowned. The moment she saw the figure of the black-robed swordsman, she felt very familiar, as if they were an acquaintance, but she couldn't tell why. Actually, she should be familiar with him, because the real identity of the black-robed swordsman was Jian Wushuang, who had given her nightmares many times over these last 3 years. Jian Wushuang simply pulled his bamboo hat down so that nobody could see his appearance. I'm talking to you. Jian Wushuang's voice sounded again. You have bothered me. What should you do? Hearing these words, all the people from Sword Marquis Mansion were stunned. Unlike them, Su Bao yelled directly, You reckless bastard, get out! When yelling at Jian Wushuang, Su Bao reached toward him with his big hand at the same time. It seemed that Su Bao was going to grab Jian Wushuang's throat and throw him directly from the window. But the instant Su Bao approached Jian Wushuang, whoosh, a fierce sword light swept by. Incredibly fast. The flash vanished immediately, Nobody was able to see the orbit of the sword light clearly. What they just saw was a fleeting sword light. Jian Wushuang was still drinking at the table and deliberately swirled the wine in his glass. However, Su Bao, who was originally going to grab Jian Wushuang's throat, was suddenly stiff. What happened? Why is that guy standing still? Zhu Yu said, feeling a little stunned. Shut up, Jian Meng'er said angrily. Zhu Yu was startled by this. Dead. Su Bao is dead. Jian Xinhong said with astonished eyes, Can't you see the blood leaking from Su Bao's neck? He was killed in just one move. What? Meng Yu, Zhu Yu, and those warriors from Sword Marquee Mansion were all shocked. Yes, there is bloodstain. His aura began to dissipate. Is he really dead? Everyone was stunned. It should be known that it was Su Bao who attacked Meng Yu and Zhu Yu with successive fists and caused them serious wounds, which showed his strength. However, he was killed by only one move in an instant. Plop. Eventually, the corpse of Su Bao fell down weakly. Third brother. A heartrending and shrill growl sounded. It shocked the Sword Marquee Mansion, but it riled up the fierce beast gang. Su Long and Su, who were startled and angry in particular. They stared at Jian Wushuang in rage, with an amazing killing intent. You killed my third brother, so I will take your life. Su Long immediately became furious. The husky figure violently rushed forward while releasing an aura as fearsome as a huge beast, which instantly overwhelmed the audience. As soon as they detected the aura, both Meng Yu and Zhu Yu instantly turned pale. Before that, they thought they were able to compete with Su Long or maybe even defeat and kill him if all three of them worked together. But now, they realized how absurd and naive they were. Su Long didn't attack them at all. The mere release of his aura was enough to instantly frighten them, causing them to lose the courage required to fight against him. Too strong. Is that the strength of an expert on the earthly dragon list? Meng Yu and Zhu Yu gaped as they saw what was happening. Jian Meng'er also stared with a solemn face. The moment Su Long rushed forward, a sword light flashed again. The sword light was beautiful and charming, as if intoxicating. The sword light was gliding. It seemed to be moving very slowly, but it was magnified in the depths of Su Long's eyes. A hint of fear rose in Su Long's eyes. Then that sword light glided through his chest. While wearing the bamboo hat and hiding his face as much as possible, Jian Wushuang had already appeared behind Su Long with some blood dripping from the edge of his triple-kill sword. Su Long's figure became stiff with his fearsome aura completely vanishing in an instant. Then he turned his head dully and slowly spoke in broken words, "You? Who are you?" Just then, plop. Su Long fell down directly. Jian Wushuang pulled his bamboo hat down and glanced at the second oldest Su, who, the only existing one of the three Su brothers. Both your elder brother and young brother died. Now it's your turn. As soon as his voice fell, a beautiful sword light flashed once again. Su, who stared with round eyes, falling down the next moment. Chapter 133, Jian Wushuang? Chapter 133, Jian Wushuang? Silence. The entire restaurant was so silent that you could hear a pin drop. Well, everyone from Sword Marquee Mansion and the Fierce Beast gang, who were still alive, were all stunned. Were the well-known three Su brothers of Tianyan province dead? The third oldest Su Bao was the first one to take action, defeating Meng Yu and Zhu Yu while seriously wounding them with 2 consecutive punches. However, he was also the first one to die, being killed in just one move. Next, the boss, Su Long, attacked by himself. As he was ranked on the earthly dragon list, the instantaneous release of his aura frightened everyone present. However, he was also killed in a single move. As for the second oldest, Su, who he hadn't even taken action before, was killed in one move. The three Su brothers were defeated in only 3 moves. One for each of them. There was no room for struggling. What kind of strength was it? Horrifying. Terrifying. Everyone looked at the black-robed swordsman in alarm. It was this black-robed swordsman that killed the 3 Su brothers within a moment. Deng, deng, deng. The black-robed swordsman walked towards the direction where people from the Sword Marquee Mansion were gathered. At that moment, everyone from Sword Marquee Mansion held their breath. Both Meng Yu and Zhu Yu cleared their throats and trembled slightly. Everyone understood that the black-robed swordsman, who was able to kill the 3 Su brothers easily, was also able to kill anyone here easily. The black-robed swordsman walked slowly, but he didn't intend to attack anyone. He walked towards the stairs and just happened to pass by Jian Menger. There was also a hint of fear in her heart. When the black-robed swordsman passed by and didn't continue to attack, she felt relieved. But then she noticed the long sword he carried. What's that? Jian Menger's pupils suddenly shrank. She had practiced with that long sword for 2 months, so she was quite familiar with it. The triple kill sword. It's the triple kill sword. Jian Menger recognized it immediately. Then she shouted, "Jian Wushuang, you are Jian Wushuang." The black-robed swordsman who was going downstairs stopped abruptly, but it was only for an instant. Then he continued to walk downstairs. "Jian Wushuang," Jian Menger shouted with her hands clenching. "Menger, what the hell are you talking about?" Jian Xinhong shouted abruptly. "Jian Wushuang died 3 years ago. How could he be here?" "Mansion Master?" Jian Menger looked at Jian Xinhong astonishedly. However, Jian Xinhong winked at her. Jian Menger frowned and then recovered herself, saying immediately, "Maybe." "You must be wrong," Jian Xinhong shouted in a low voice. "Clean up the corpses of the 3 Su brothers. As long as they are dead, we don't need to worry about the Fierce Beast gang. As for you," Jian Xinhong coldly looked towards the warriors of the Fierce Beast gang, who were still alive. "Mansion Master, please have mercy. We will disband the Fierce Beast gang immediately. Mansion Master, we beg of you, please have mercy." These warriors who just reached the initial Gold Core realm immediately begged for mercy. "It's ridiculous to beg me for mercy," said Jian Xinhong. Then he sneered and followed with a direct attack. After a few moments, all of the warriors were immediately killed. Afterward, the people from Sword Marquee Mansion began to clean up the corpses. At that time, Jian Xinhong pulled Jian Menger aside and asked her in a low voice, "Menger, are you sure that the black-robed swordsman you saw just now was Jian Wushuang? His face was hidden under the bamboo hat, so I wasn't able to see it clearly." Jian Menger shook her head and continued speaking, "But I recognized the sword he carried. It was the same triple kill sword that I practiced with for 2 months. What's more, I could feel a hint of familiarity from the figure of the black-robed swordsman. Thus, I'm quite sure that he is Jian Wushuang. He is definitely Jian Wushuang. The triple kill sword and his figure are the evidence. Jian Wushuang always has the triple kill sword, and you felt his figure was familiar. Besides, he also helped us end this disaster by killing the 3 Su brothers." Jian Xinhong smiled and said, "This guy who disappeared for 3 years has finally come back. But how was he able to acquire such great strength?" Jian Menger looked a bit unnatural. How could he be so strong? An expert like Su Long, who was ranked on the Earthly Dragon list, was also killed by Jian Wushuang with only 1 move. Only 1 move. How could his strength be so incredible? Even her senior brother, Ling Feng, whom she considered as her Mr. Right, was unlikely to kill Su Long in a single move. She came back with confidence, prepared to compete with Jian Wushuang and erase the humiliation she suffered 3 years ago. However, the gap between them became wider and wider, which made her almost desperate. It now appeared that was a joke. That bastard, how did he make such great progress? It was hard for Jian Menger to accept the facts, but her only choice was to believe it. Jian Wushuang left Celestial Immortal residence and walked out into the street, but he couldn't help glancing backward at the Celestial Immortal residence, shaking his head secretly. Although I deliberately hid my face and even changed the voice, Jian Menger was still able to recognize me. It was because of the triple kill sword that she was able to recognize me. Jian Wushuang could do nothing about this. However, even though he was recognized, he didn't intend to stay behind and chat with them. If he went back to Sword Marquis Mansion with his true identity, it would be a disaster for Sword Marquis Mansion, just like what happened 3 years ago, or even worse. Anyway, Sword Marquis Mansion is in good condition, and the Sword Pavilion is still there, so it's fine. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. Just now, he noticed that there were some experts following Jian Xinhong from Sword Marquis Mansion. Because they had the marks of Sword Pavilion on their clothes, it proved that the Sword Pavilion still existed in Sword Marquis Mansion. Jian Wushuang stayed there for another day. He didn't feel relieved until after the 3 Su brothers were dead, and the whole Fierce Beast gang was completely torn apart by Sword Marquis Mansion. After that, he went to the Gladiator Arena to visit Bai Chong. Jian Wushuang was thankful to Bai Chong. Not only did Bai Chong help him when he was young, Bai Chong also helped hold back the assassins with a group of experts from the Gladiator Arena when he was being chased by Blood Feather Tower 3 years ago. Anyway, Jian Wushuang owed him a lot. However, it was a pity Jian Wushuang was unable to meet Bai Chong at the Gladiator Arena. It was said that Bai Chong left Bahui Commandery 3 years ago, and no one knew where he was. Jian Wushuang could also do nothing about this. He also left at that night. After resting assured about Sword Marquis Mansion, he was going to get his revenge on Blood Feather Tower. The day I return is the day all you demons die. Now, he was back. Chapter 134, Clearwater Stronghold. Chapter 134, Clearwater Stronghold. In one of the Golden Dragon subsidiary palaces in Tianyan province, Jian Wushuang, still dressed in black and wearing a bamboo hat, directly came to the counter and took out his token from Dragon Palace. "Sir, come with me, please." After the blue-haired woman at the front counter saw the token, she immediately led Jian Wushuang into a private room. "Give me all the files on Blood Feather Tower within my access permission, including strongholds of Blood Feather Tower in Tianyan province, the number of experts, and the strength of those strongholds, etc. Besides that, give me a copy of the Earthly Dragon List as well," Jian Wushuang said. The Earthly Dragon List would be renewed every once in a while. Since 2 years had passed, the list should have changed a lot. "Yes, sir," the blue-haired woman nodded and said. Soon she gave Jian Wushuang a lot of files. Jian Wushuang read them carefully. "Oh, it is as I expected. Blood Feather Tower did suffer a desperate revenge after the battle on Quiet Moon Lake." Jian Wushuang smiled slightly when he saw the information about the battle. When Dragon Palace heard of his death, the 2 palace masters of Dragon Palace, along with many top experts, retaliated against Blood Feather Tower in a full-scale attack. Many strongholds of Blood Feather Tower in Tianzong Dynasty suffered a bloodbath, and lots of experts were killed, which was one of the few setbacks Blood Feather Tower had gone through. But it just lasted for 2 months and suddenly died down. Blood Feather Tower had undoubtedly been in danger, and was about to be destroyed. But why did everything suddenly die down? Jian Wushuang didn't understand. If there was no particular reason, they would not have stopped so easily. It seems that the background of Blood Feather Tower is not as simple as it seems, Jian Wushuang thought. Then he looked at another file. It was about the distribution of strongholds of Blood Feather Tower in Tianyan province and their strength. It said that the strength of Blood Feather Tower is much weaker because of the bloodbath 2 years ago. Now, they behaved more carefully than before, and their strongholds are located at easier-to-conceal places. Even Golden Dragon Palace could only locate 3 strongholds of Blood Feather Tower in Tianyan province. It astonished Jian Wushuang. It should be known that Tianyan province was an important place for Blood Feather Tower. However, there were as many as 108 commanderies in Tianyan province. How could they run it well with only 3 strongholds? They need at least a dozen. But their strongholds were secluded. Even as the best at collecting information in Tianzong Dynasty, Golden Dragon Palace could only locate 3 of their strongholds. Among the 3, 2 of them were small. Only the last one was an important one. Clearwater Stronghold. Jian Wushuang squinted. Clearwater Stronghold, located in Clearwater Commandery of Tianyan province. There were a lot of copper-masked and silver-masked assassins, as well as many golden-masked assassins. Most importantly, there were 2 purple-masked assassins and an intelligence director in it. While in those 2 small strongholds, there were only a couple of golden-masked assassins. Jian Wushuang was not interested in them at all. Blood Feather Tower has established a well-defined intelligence system. Once I take action, Blood Feather Tower will notice immediately. It's impossible to get a second chance. Therefore, the action must be fast, relentless, and bring a great loss. Jian Wushuang's eyes were cold. Losing some gold-masked assassins was nothing to Blood Feather Tower, who was one of the 3 hegemons in Tianzong Dynasty. They would not care. However, it would be different if they lost some purple-masked assassins. Especially in the battle 2 years ago, Blood Feather Tower had paid a huge price, which made purple-masked assassins even more important. If Jian Wushuang could kill several purple-masked assassins this time, it would definitely be a big loss for Blood Feather Tower. These 2 purple-masked assassins are in the Yinyang Void Realm, but only the initial Yinyang Void Realm. They are about the same as the purple-masked assassin, who was severely wounded. Even his right hand was disabled by me near Quiet Moon Lake 2 years ago. It's possible to kill them both, Jian Wushuang thought. An assassin's strength in the same realm could vary. Some were stronger and some were weaker. These 2 purple-masked assassins in Clearwater Stronghold were weaker ones. 2 years ago, Jian Wushuang severely hurt and almost killed a purple-masked assassin with his soul-devouring secret skill. Now, even without using it, he was quite sure that he could kill them with only his comprehension and sword essence. I will take Clearwater Stronghold, Jian Wushuang decided. Of course, the reason he targeted Clearwater Stronghold was not only because of those 2 purple-masked assassins, but also because of another man. He was the one who was in charge of the intelligence system there. His name was Ning. Jian Wushuang would never forget him. 3 years ago, some assassins from Blood Feather Tower chased him from Sword Marquee Mansion, and their leader was Ning. What's more, it was he who poisoned his aunt with the heart-biting poison, which had tortured his aunt for years. His aunt was caught by Ning at that time, and he didn't know how his aunt was doing now. Ning, you old bastard, Jian Wushuang's eyes were ice cold. Then he called the blue-haired woman and told her, prepare me a griffin and something special. A huge rift in Clearwater Commandery. It was a remote rift embosomed in hills. As usual, few people came here, not even to pass by. In the thick woods at the center of the rift was a huge courtyard. It was Clearwater Stronghold, a quite important place for the top assassin organization in Tianzong Dynasty, Blood Feather Tower. On the top of a mountain in the rift, Jian Wushuang stood quietly dressed in black and wearing a bamboo hat. Watching through the void, his cold eyes stared at the courtyard below. Blood Feather Tower has heavy security. To enter the stronghold, assassins of Blood Feather Tower have to signal one another, and the password alternates every day. Besides that, the killers are well trained. It is impossible to sneak in by getting the password from them. The only way to get in was kill his way in. A stream of killing intent could be seen rising from his body. At this moment, thunder growled over the void, and the sky became dark. Then a heavy rain began falling a second later. The rain fell on the ground, and the earth got wet. It raining, palm outstretched, Jian Wushuang felt the rain slapping on the back of his hands. Since the weather is favoring me, let me enjoy slaughtering them in the heavy rain. Jian Wushuang changed into a straw rain cape. Then he grabbed his sword and directly walked toward the huge courtyard in the center of the rift.